Welcome back to the channel. Today we will travel through the pages of What If Deku Gained Powers to Change His Fate Part 11. The link to the story will be in the description below, and if you want an update of the current series, join the Discord. Now let's start. Chapter 31. Man, I can't believe that Madaram guy got his heart changed like that. And on TV and everything. What kind of quirk works like that? Most mind-altering quirks don't last very long, right? Must be some new mutation or something. Either way, those phantom thieves really did a number on that guy. Izuku hid a smile behind the notebook as he jotted down everything he could about Madaram's shadow and his change of heart. Of course, he kept a paper cover over the front. Wouldn't want prying eyes to pick up on his hobby. Though he was sure that most would just think he had an overactive imagination. Someone looks happy. Morgana smirked at him from inside his desk. Not that I blame you. It is pretty satisfying to hear people talking about our work. I know I should only be happy we did the right thing, but this isn't so bad either. Izuku sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. Those phantom thieves are way out of line. They should be letting heroes handle these kinds of problems. Izuku stiffened a bit at that and sighed. Of course, not everything we're going to hear is positive. But I guess I expected as much. True. Especially after what that girl said yesterday. Yeah, though it does make me wonder sometimes. Izuku put his pencil to his chin, looking up and thought. If I was on the outside of this and wasn't a phantom thief, would I feel the same? Well, I'd like to say no, but you are a huge hero fanboy. Morgana put a paw to his chin. But that kind of thinking doesn't matter. You know what we fight for and why we have to do it. Even if the old you might have opposed it, the you of now knows the truth. Izuku smiled. Right. I guess it doesn't matter. Alright. Everyone quiet down. Izuku turned his attention back to the front as a visibly exhausted Kawakami walked into the classroom. I know you're all still reeling from what happened on TV, but I have an important announcement. Kawakami waited a moment for the students to settle down. Alright, starting today, we'll be having a late transfer student joining us. Please welcome her kindly. Go ahead and introduce yourself. The door slid open, and Izuku couldn't help but stare when he saw a familiar red-haired girl walk into class. Morgana poked his head out of the side of the desk. Speak of the devil, my name is Kasumi Yashizawa. Please take care of me. She bowed politely to the rest of the class. Whispers broke out immediately, some welcoming while others disbelieving. Alright, that's enough. Yashizawa has transferred in late due to some personal circumstances. I expect everyone to treat her kindly. Kawakami said, doing her best to sound more caring. Feel free to pick a seat, Yashizawa. Though it doesn't look like many are left. Okay. Izuku soon found the new student heading down his lane, taking the seat next to him that had been left empty for quite some time. No one wanted to sit next to the kid with the assault charge, after all. Izuku watched her for a moment longer as she settled in, seemingly oblivious to the stare she was getting from their classmates. Kasumi soon noticed, greeting Izuku with a smile. Hi, there. I hope we'll get along. Right. Nice to meet you as well though. Kasumi tilted her head. Wait, didn't I meet you yesterday? Yeah, at Shibuya. Izuku nodded, hoping he sounded less awkward. Oh, right. What a coincidence. Alright, that's enough talk. Class is starting. You guys got a new student in class? Ryuji asked before taking a sip of his cola. Yeah. I didn't think we'd have another student transfer this late into the year. Izuku nodded, sitting behind the table next to the vending machines. I had heard about a late transfer student coming in, but with so much going on, I hadn't given it much thought. Makoto admitted, walking over to the table and placing a soda in front of Izuku. Yeah, I can see how that's not really big on our priority list, Anne agreed, taking a seat next to Ryuji. That reminds me, you find a new target yet? Ryuji shook his head. I just started looking yesterday. No way I'd find something that quick. Guys, not so loud. We don't know who could be listening. Makoto hushed them, her red eyes darting around in caution. Which brings me to another big topic. In a few days, we're going to have police coming through the school again. What? Blurted the others. Kabayakawa told me. The police are going to interview some of the students supposedly about Kamoshida's case, but that's just a cover for them to ask about the phantom thieves. Oh shit, Ryuji swallowed a lump in his throat. Don't panic. There's no way they can link us to anything that's happened. Morgana popped his head out of Izuku's bag. So long as everyone plays it cool, the police won't be able to pin anything on us. He's right. None of us have quirks that could function like that. Even if they suspect us, there's nothing that links us to the change of heart. Izuku explained, doing his best to stay calm for the others. Still, that doesn't mean anyone should be too carefree. Each one of you has been selected for questioning. I'm not sure when Kabayakawa came up with his list, but I did see everyone's name on it. Except for mine, of course. Makoto explained. TCH. That fat bastard. Ryuji tapped his foot furiously. He only cares about doing something when stuff starts inconveniencing him. Yes, that's becoming more and more apparent. Makoto's eyes narrowed. I'll give him a piece of my mind soon enough. Kitagawa-sen said the police had already questioned him after Madaram's confession, but they didn't suspect him as a phantom thief. Said Izuku. Still, we should warn him just in case. Right. It would suck if he were to get blindsided by another interview, Anne nodded before shifting her gaze to Ryuji. So, did you decide on where you're gonna go? Huh. Go where? You know, for the social studies trip. I was thinking of going to the TV station. Ryuji stared for a moment before groaning in reluctance. Ugh, right. The social studies trip. God, I just want to ditch that so bad, don't you dare. Not only does that bring attention to yourself, it also reflects badly on everyone around you, Makoto said, narrowing her eyes dangerously. Why yes ma'am. Ryuji swallowed a lump in his throat. Heh. I guess Ryuji's the type to get pushed around by a girl, Morgana chuckled in amusement. She turned her gaze to the cat, who instantly stopped laughing. Morgana, you shouldn't be so careless as to poke your head out of Midori's bag so much on school grounds either. Consider his position if he were caught with you. His ears folded down. Why yes ma'am. I guess Ryuji's not the only one, Anne giggled before looking at Izuku. Though I bet you'd be the worst. What? His cheeks burned as Makoto patted him on the head. Oh, I'm sure that whatever girl Midori ends up with would make him quite the pushover. Well, he hunched over in defeat. Yeah, come on, man. Don't fold over that quickly. Ryuji sighed before looking back at Anne. Well, I guess I'm going to the stupid trip. Well then, just go with me to the TV station. Might as well try and have fun, right? Anne shrugged, smiling at the faux blonde. I doubt it. We're probably just gonna stand around the whole time. Izuku took a swig of canned espresso. It's too bad it's only for second years. I wish I could go with you guys. You ain't gonna miss much. These kinda trips are always a snorefest, Ryuji shook his head. I'd rather we all ditch and do something to celebrate Madaram's change of heart. Plus, a welcome party for Makoto and Yusuke. Makoto shook her head. Well, I appreciate the thought, I wouldn't accept a party that would require all of us ditching school. Still, we do need to plan our party out. We had one after Kamoshida's change of heart, so it only makes sense to do the same for this one. Anne pushed, grinning at the thought. Oh, can we go back to that amazing buffet, can we? Please. Morgana pleaded. I didn't feel very welcome there. Besides, it was pretty expensive. Izuku pointed out. Though I do need to sell the loot we gathered from Madaram's palace, true. Unlike Kamoshida's palace, we don't have something big to sell. So maybe a smaller party works out this time. Oh, I know. Izuku and Makoto should meet us at Dome Town after the trip. Anne said, her face lighting up at the idea. It's up by Tsutobashi, so that would make for a great post-palace party. Ryuji nodded fervently. Oh, that's a great idea. We should totally do that. What's Dome Town? Morgana asked innocently. It's an amusement park in Tsutobashi. I didn't realize that the TV station would be that far, though. Izuku said before smiling. But I'm willing to go. We should invite Kitagawa-san too. Unfortunately, I'll have to pass. I have a few meetings to attend tomorrow for the student council. I might be a bit busy for the next couple of days, in fact. Makoto sighed. Ah, that sucks. Guess we'll have to shelve the party for a bit, then. Ryuji shrugged. It'll make things easier to plan out with Yusuke at least. Anne said before giving Ryuji a playful nudge. Guess I'm counting on you tomorrow. Try not to get distracted by any actresses we see, Kay. Wait, actresses? Ryuji blinked before a dumb grin spread across his face. Well, guess tomorrow might not be so bad, I just said don't get distracted. Do you remember the grind needed for this type of coffee brewer? Medium fine, right. Izuku repeated the words from memory. That's right. It requires about 5 more seconds of cranking at that pace. No more, no less. Sojiro advised, watching him from a few feet away. Izuku soon finished, pouring the grinds into the filter. Okay. Do you remember what I said last time about the flavor? You said it was a bit bland and I think it needed more heat. Exactly. This time, turn up the heat a little. If the water isn't hot enough, the coffee won't extract and you get a weak cup. Don't let it get too hot either. You'll make it bitter and destroy the oils that give coffee its subtler flavors. Izuku nodded fervently and quickly jotted it down before lighting a flame beneath the siphon. He wiped the sweat from his brow as the water began to boil. Coffee making is a lot more work than I realized. Sojiro gave him a reassuring smile. It's not so bad once you're used to it. I guess it doesn't help having me watch your every move. You can relax a bit, though. You're not serving this to a customer and I'm here to help you. Izuku felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Thanks. Sorry for getting worked up, then. It shows you're trying to improve, at least. Now show me what you've got, kid. Sojiro urged him. Izuku took a small breath and followed his instructions to the T. He kept an eye on the flame, stirring it gently 10 times until it frothed. After another minute, he killed the heat and let it drain back down the siphon. With mild confidence, Izuku poured and offered the cup of joe to Sojiro. Sojiro took a sip and smacked his lips. Not bad. You leveled it out pretty well. He put it down and gave him a curt nod of approval. But now that you've gotten the brewing down, it's time to move on to the next step. Creating a blend. That might not sound tough, but mixing a bunch of beans at random won't do you any good. Yeah, that sounds pretty difficult. I haven't tried out that many different types of coffee. Izuku admitted, his eyes trailing to the jars of beans behind them. Feel free to test out a few combinations. I can give you a list of some that I make, but I'd like to see what you come up with. Sojiro pointed to the top shelf. Just don't use the expensive beans. Is it really alright? I don't want to hurt your inventory by using the coffee beans for testing. Sojiro smiled. Trust me, I'd let you know if I didn't want you to. The more you're able to learn, the more you'll be able to help me out around here. He pulled some jars off the shelf and presented them to Izuku. Back to mixing beans, just tossing a bunch into the grinder's no good. You have to find a good bean-to-bean ratio to work with. The acidity and flavor profile all depend on it. Pretty deep, huh? I never realized how much there was to making coffee, Izuku mumbled, his glued to the notebook in his hands as he jotted down Sojiro's words. Where did you learn about all this, Sakura-san? I've known a thing or two for quite a while, but I did have some help. In fact, I met a scientific genius who helped me come up with the perfect spice combo to complement the coffee. Sojiro explained, looking nostalgic as he placed a hand on his chin. Something about the quantification of taste, honestly, there's no formula for flavor, but it is pretty damn good. You must have really impressed them with your coffee to get that kind of help, said Izuku. Heh, it was actually my previous curry that got their attention. Though the coffee did play a part in it, too. Sojiro shook his head and cleared his throat. Anyway, enough about that. Just know that we don't make compromises when it comes to food service. Our stuff's gotta wow the customers. This is a tiny shop, after all. Self-satisfaction is what helps keep me going. Self-satisfaction, huh? Izuku looked up in thought. While Sojiro often looked rather bored at work most of the time, he did see him give his customers a smile when they'd praise his curry and coffee. It might have seemed small to some, but Izuku could understand feeling pride in such a modest yet labor-intensive job. The store's bells rang, bringing Izuku's attention back up to the door. His shoulders tensed when a familiar, shady man he'd seen weeks ago walked in. Sojiro's eyes turned venomous. Haven't I already told you I don't have the money? Look at this place. Does it look like I've just got money lying around? Oh, no need to hide it, Sakura-san. I'm sure you saved plenty in your time working for the government. The man batted away Sojiro's excuse. Aren't you taking care of that employee too, for nothing more than charity? I wish you'd show me the same kindness you show others. So he's trying to get money from Sakura-san. Who's this guy? Izuku thought, his lips turning into a thin frown as felt himself become defensive. Sojiro crossed his arms over his chest. Look, if you're not going to buy anything, could you please leave? I'm expecting a phone call, so I don't have time to chat with you. You're free to take it in front of me if you want. I'll just chat with your employee in the meantime. Izuku certainly didn't like the sound of that. He spared a look at Sojiro, knowing full well that he wasn't expecting any call. But that doesn't mean he can't get one. Izuku slid his hand into his pocket to fish out his phone beneath the cover of his apron. So should we talk until your call comes in? Or would that be inconvenient for you? Ring ring. Sojiro did well not to look at Izuku, pulling his phone out and putting on a neutral expression. And that's the social services call I was waiting for. They come around pretty often to check on this guy. Would you like me to introduce you? The man's expression morphed into panic before he quickly tried to cover it up with a smile. Ah, you know what, I just remembered I got my own business to handle. I'll come back later. He laughed nervously before making a swift exit. Sojiro and Izuku waited for the bells to chime before releasing simultaneous sighs of relief. That man really has nothing better to do. Sojiro shook his head, placing a hand on his hip before looking at Izuku. I guess I should explain what's going on. He might try and drop by while I'm not around. Please do. I honestly don't want to deal with him without knowing what's going on. That man is an old acquaintance of mine. And he's short on cash right now. He puts on a friendly face, but he's really just a leech. Don't trust him. His expression softened, smiling at Izuku. But I have to say, I'm impressed. That was smart of you to do that without him noticing. That really saved me back there. Thank you. Izuku smiled back. I'm happy I was able to help. Smash sheriff and confidant. Rank 4. Sojiro's smile fell as he finally shook his head, rubbing his neck. Great, now it's almost like I'm inspiring that behavior. I told you not to before, but you can't help but stick your nose into other people's troubles, huh? Izuku blinked before laughing sheepishly, unsure how to respond considering several factors in his life at the moment. Sojiro smirked. Well, I guess that's the kind of kid you are, huh? Strangely gutsy for someone so jittery. Though I have noticed you're less nervous lately. I am? Yeah. You stutter a lot less than before. I guess some good things have been happening for you, huh? Sojiro gave him a sly look. Is it a girl? Izuku choked on those words. As the old clock hanging against the wall rang. It's that time already? I guess I better head out. Go and do what you need to after closing up, alright? Okay, Sakura-san. But Izuku hesitated, looking back at the door. Why don't you report him? The police might not do anything severe, but it might keep him away if he's spoken to. Sojiro sighed, rubbing his brow. I've thought about it, trust me. But since he's related to her, Sojiro quickly cleared his throat. Never mind that. It's just not in the cards for me. Anyways, I'm going to head home. Make sure you clean things up well, okay? Sojiro was quick to grab his hat and leave without saying much else. Izuku found himself wanting to ask more, but decided to leave him be, allowing the coffee shop owner answer in his own time. For example, soap opera reruns are shown during the day, while alluring newscasters are shown at night. This is all decided by the scheduling department, who maps out the airing schedule for the entire channel. Talk about obvious, Ryuji mumbled, hunching forward as he fought against his boredom. No kidding, I'm getting sleepy just standing here. Anne had to stifle a yawn with her hand. Hinda makes me jealous of Izuku and Makoto. They didn't have to come to this crap, yeah, but you'd still be just bored at school. It's basically a no-win scenario, Anne sighed, putting a hand on her hip. Yeah, good point. Thought at least I'd get to sleep in class instead of standin' here, Ryuji complained, leaning to one side. Just as he was about to settle in for another long drawl, he stumbled forward as a man bumped into him. Hey. What's with all this noise? It's a nuisance. The man hurried past Ryuji without so much as a word of apology. Hey, asshole. Ryuji started, Anne quickly tugging him back at the elbow to keep him from exploding. Calm down, we're supposed to be on our best behavior. Anne whispered, causing the faux blonde to ground his teeth and relent silently. My apologies, sir. We were just about to disperse. The hostess apologized, turning to the students with a formal smile. Alright, everyone. Now we're going to try some hands-on activities. Ryuji and Anne tuned out the woman, watching as her boss turned back around without giving them a look. What a dick. Who does he think he is? Just forget it. Those jerks are a dime a dozen. Anne sighed, turning back around toward the group. She was met with the sight of a man standing close by, his eyes glazing over her with interest. Hey there, young lady. How would you like to be on TV? He asked, his voice hiding little of his mischievous intent. Huh? You have a slammin' bod, after all. I'm sure we could work something out. He laughed. I'm here on a school trip. Anne rubbed her arm in discomfort. Just gimme a call if you're interested. I'd greatly welcome a call from you, day or night. He said, offering Anne a card. Ryuji clicked his tongue and stood up next to Anne, glaring at the guy. Look, man. You're making her uncomfortable. Stop being a sleaze and give her space. Ryuji. Anne hissed, tugging him back by the arm. Excuse me. The man turned to glare back at Ryuji, though the faux blonde didn't back down from him. You better watch it. I'm sorry, but is there a problem? Kawakami suddenly stepped in between the two, putting on a plastic smile as she held up her hands. Yeah. Your student over here was talking shit. Only because you were being a creep. Sakamoto. Kawakami snapped. Ryuji to grit his teeth and seethe. The teacher cleared her throat, turning back to the man with a plastic smile again. Now, if you have a complaint about my students, you can give them to me. Of course, we'll have to hear all sides of this to understand what went wrong. How does that sound? While Kawakami's words were subtle, the man felt the minor threat behind her words. He could only click his tongue and shake his head. Whatever. It wasn't a big deal. Just send these two over to another caster for the hands-on experience. I'll be sure to do that. Kawakami waved the man goodbye as he walked away before turning an irritated glare back at Ryuji. Look, I understand you're mad about being here, but don't start trouble. The last thing we need is to be reported by the station. We're sorry about that, Kawakami-sensei. We'll keep our heads down from now on. Anne answered before Ryuji could, sending him a demanding look. Right. Ryuji huffed before nodding his head. Yeah. Sorry about that, Teach. Kawakami watched them both for a moment longer before sighing, rubbing her forehead. Thank you. I really don't need more trouble right now than needed with that. The teacher took her leave, allowing the two a moment to themselves. Well, that could have been bad. You shouldn't have gotten mad like that, Anne scolded, only for Ryuji to scoff and turn his head. Screw that guy. All the shitty adults we run into only care about looks. It makes me sick. Ryuji said, his foot tapping incessantly. I just wanna rip out all their damn hearts and make him change. Well, we can't do that if you're constantly getting in trouble. So try to keep a lid on it. Anne said, crossing her arms. I can deal with guys like that, so don't worry about it. You shouldn't have to put up with guys like that. Especially after everything you've been through. Ryuji stomped his foot, Anne's eyes widening in surprise. It just makes me sick. I can't wait to get back to Phantom Thief work. Well, until then, we just have to put up with it. Anne said, looking down in thought. Yeah, whatever, let's get this over with. Ryuji turned to join the other students. Hey Ryuji. Anne reached a hand out, grabbing his arm. The faux blonde turned back, seeing a small but grateful smile on Anne's face. Thanks for standing up for me. I might be able to handle it, but I'm glad you did. Ryuji raised a brow before giving a small smile back. Don't worry about it. You know I've got your back. Yeah. I do. Anne nodded in appreciation. Just try to be a little quieter next time. Yeah. Man, you were so damn lucky, Izuku. Not only was the first half of it boring, the second half we had to do a ton of manual labor. Izuku could only laugh sheepishly as Ryuji complained. Izuku had quickly taken a train over to Tsutobashi once school was over, expecting his friends to be in good spirits. As it turned out, it was quite the opposite. You're being too loud. Anne huffed before she shifted tired eyes to Izuku. He's right, though. That whole thing was terrible. By the end of the day, I honestly wished I had been at school instead. Right, Izuku gave them a sympathetic look. I see. Sorry that it didn't turn out as fun as you guys hoped. Still, that's not a good excuse for causing a scene, Ryuji. Morgana plopped over Izuku's shoulder and glared at Ryuji. You guys are supposed to be acting like good students, remember, that wasn't my fault. That guy was hey, I already gave Ryuji a hard time over it, so don't worry about it. Said Anne. Besides, he did it for me. I think we should cut him some slack. Morgana blinked, his eyes darting between the two. Well, if you say so, Lady Anne. Yeah. Anyways, come on. I want to try a few rides already. I need something to loosen up after a day like that. Anne said, stretching her arms above her head in excitement. Definitely. I'm really feeling like a roller coaster now. Ryuji grinned, looking around. Let's do a big one right off the bat. Alright, just don't complain to me if you get sick before the other ones. Anne giggled, the two walking ahead. Izuku smiled as he moved to join them, only for Morgana to push a paw into his cheek. Hey Izuku. What is it? I know that we both established that the idea is beyond crazy, but you don't think those two could? Morgana's eyes narrowed in suspicion, glaring daggers into Ryuji's back. I mean, Izuku's eyes trailed to his friends in front of them, watching Anne and Ryuji bicker back and forth. You really think so? Aren't they just acting like they always do? Maybe, but Morgana lowered his head in discouragement, obviously not convinced by his words. Come on, Izuku. Let's get ahead of Ryuji by going on the biggest roller coaster. I'll show Lady Anne how brave I am. I don't think going on a roller coaster will make you look brave, blah. I regret everything. Izuku sat with Morgana on a bench, the cat leaning over the edge as he fought the urge to throw up. Man, my stomach's churning just from what I did. I can't imagine what it was like for you in the bag, Ryuji said with some sympathy, leaning on the arm of the bench and rubbing his stomach. Ha. It sounds like I won this round. THENBLEGH1. Won what? Don't worry about it. Izuku quickly whipped out a napkin to wipe Morgana's lips. I'm just fine, honestly. Hey, you guys wanna go and grab a bite now? I'm pretty hungry after all that. Anne suggested. No please, the idea of food is painful, Morgana whimpered as Izuku rubbed his back. Maybe it's better if we head home for the day. You guys have another full day tomorrow, right? Izuku said. Ryuji groaned. Crap, you're right. More of that boring trip, it's too bad. I heard they were supposed to have a talk show tomorrow starring some junior detective or something, but he had to cancel it last second. Anne sighed. Guess it'll be more hands-on experience, just great. Guess now is a good time to head home, then Ryuji mumbled, stuffing his hands into his pockets. Well, at least we were able to have fun here. I'm glad I came. Izuku said, slowly picking up Morgana and putting him in his shoulder bag. Gentle please, yeah, even if I wanna barf a bit, it was pretty fun. Glad you came out to join us, Ryuji smiled back, moving to leave. Anne made a big motion to step away from him. Just make sure you don't barf on me. Ugh, why did things get so out of hand? Kazuho released a tired sigh as she rested her head on top of her arms, the illegal idol using her lunch break as a means to rest. Normally she would have liked to squeeze in a bite to eat before napping, but she was too tired to even try that. The previous day had been long, having attended a social studies trip before going straight to Koichi's place and slapping on her costume to perform. It had been a rush job to get back in time to start the concert on the schedule she had set, making it 10 times more stressful than she would have liked. It only got worse from there, sadly. Knuckleduster hadn't even bothered to stop by, and Koichi wasn't able to keep the crowd under control for more than 10 seconds. People got rowdy and eventually the police showed up, leading to a huge fiasco in the street. Kazuho had to make an emergency exit while Koichi almost got caught in the sea of people mobbing. The day had been so long, she requested to attend some of the preliminary classes meant for people in detention instead of attending the second trip. "I can't keep this up, I need to get something organized for the concerts." Kazuho tried to consider her options. She could try and come up with a schedule of her own, but found the idea to be absolutely draining. Doing that on top of her usual stage work, as well as the occasional vigilante business, would drain her of all energy. She was having a tough time keeping her grades up as it is. "But I can't afford a manager, and there's no way Koichi can be trusted with it." Kazuho leaned her chin on her arms now, trying to figure out the best solution. "If things keep going like this, who knows how long I'll last. Okay, today I'll head home and study more, or should I go and see Takemi-sensei? Maybe Iwasan?" Kazuho raised a brow, looking over her shoulder to see another student a few seats away. He was jotting down several notes into a binder. The green-haired teen leaned over the desk as he tapped his chin and thought. "Okay, after school today, I'll pay a visit to Takemi-sensei. Afterwards, I'll focus on studying for the rest of the night. Tomorrow I'll visit Iwasan once school finishes. I don't think they have anything special going on at the moment, but it might be nice to help them with small things. After that, it might be a good idea to focus on workouts. I need to stay in shape and can't rely too much on visits to stay fit. But what to focus on? Arms, legs, upper body." Maybe Kazuho felt a small amount of discomfort from the boy's mumblings, other students obviously sharing the feeling as they made strides to avoid him. "What's with that guy? He's going a mile a minute." Ring ring. Kazuho raised her head in disappointment when she heard the school bell toll, groaning as she stood from her seat. The boy some ways away quickly shuffled his things together before shoving them into his bag, leaving in a rush. As Kazuho pushed in her chair, she turned to see a paper fall out of his binder, raising a brow as it floated harmlessly to the floor. She opened her mouth to call out to him, but the boy was already out the door. "Talk about in a hurry." Kazuho sighed as she leaned over and picked the paper up, adjusting her glasses as she took a look at the contents. She blinked in shock when she saw an entire week of notes plotted out, scheduling all of the strange activities the boy was partaking in. What the hell? How busy is this guy? Still, she took a moment to go over everything written, her eyes lighting up when an idea came to mind. "This guy is organized, really organized." A dark grin spread across Kazuho's face. "And I could use something like that right now." Izuku breathed out a tired sigh as he walked through the alleys of Yonjinjaya. It had been a long day spent dealing with the police interviews as well as working at Iwai's shop until evening. The latter wasn't so bad, but the interview had been draining. "You seem tired. Maybe you should just sleep as soon as you get home," Morgana suggested, looking over his shoulder at Izuku in concern. "I was thinking about it, but maybe I should get a workout in first," Izuku said, though only half considering the idea. "As tired as I am, I still need to maintain my routine." "I know, but if you work yourself into the ground, you'll collapse before we can even get to the next palace. A break now and then from your routine isn't going to hurt." Before he could pursue the thought, he heard his phone ring. He fished out his phone to see that Ryuji sent a group text to him and Mishima. "Ryuji. Yo, Izuku. Bro. I got something real interesting you might want to see." Izuku's eyes lit up. He was tempted to ask if it was another target, but stopped when he considered that Mishima was in the group text and not the rest of the thieves. Morgana's eyes narrowed. "What's that scoundrel up to now?" Izuku laughed sheepishly. "You shouldn't assume the worst in Ryuji-senpai, come on Izuku." "Oh, what is it? And how come you're sending it in a separate text from the group?" "Mishima. This is a top secret mission for the guys only. Only we can handle this job." Izuku raised a brow at that, sparing Morgana a look. "Izuku. Okay. What's the job?" "Ryuji. I got something pretty suspicious in the mail and I think we should check it out." The image that popped up made Izuku blush. It was a flyer for an in-house maid service from what he could tell. He guessed it was a house cleaning company with a maid theme as a gimmick for attracting customers. "Ryuji. This is right up our lane. Mean, we're the guys here. It's only natural for us to be the ones to handle a job like this." Right. Mishima. "Yeah. We need to make sure that this company is legit. Like, do they actually provide a cleaning service? And do the maids actually look as advertised?" "Of course. Though I have to say, I'm somewhat disappointed in Mishima for joining in on this." Morgana shook his head, looking at Izuku. "So, planning to go along with their mission? Well, Izuku was no stranger to liking women, he wasn't so sure about the idea of this secret job Ryuji and Mishima were pushing. While he knew it was just an excuse, he could think of a lot of ways that this could go wrong. Izuku. Guys, I don't think this is a job for the Phantom Thieves. Ryuji. Oh, come on, dude. Mishima. Yeah. If they're false advertising, this company needs to be punished. Izuku tried to use his hand to wipe the disappointment off his face, to no avail. Izuku. Well, I understand wanting to make sure it's legitimate, that's not the Phantom Thieves' job. Their job is to help people who have nowhere to go and have been ignored. Izuku. I don't want to wield the Phantom Thief title and use it for small things that really will make us look no better than bullies. Mishima. Oh, Ryuji. Okay, look. It doesn't have to be Phantom Thief stuff. Ryuji. We can just check it out for ourselves. As like a guy outing. At least Ryuji-senpai is being honest now. Izuku. I would have to pass. Maids aren't really my thing, Ryuji. Oh man. Come on. We need the extra courage. And you're all about that shit. Mishima. Please, it could be really fun. Looks like they're both getting desperate now. Morgana sighed. I kind of feel bad, but I honestly wouldn't be able to handle that kind of thing, Izuku admitted, his cheeks reddening at the idea. Izuku. Sorry, I'm not sure if it's something we should do. A lot of things could go wrong, and I don't think I'd be that brave in there. Ryuji. Alright, fine, Mishima. Okay, yeesh. They act so hurt by your decision. Morgana chuckled. I didn't want to shoot down the idea, but I really don't think it's something we should do. Who knows what could go wrong in that kind of situation. Izuku stuffed his phone away as he continued on his way home. Thank you for calling me, master. Have a nice day. Izuku came to a halt, his and Morgana's eyes darting to the right at a nearby apartment complex. They saw a woman dressed as a maid doing a curtsy before bidding farewell to an older man. Well, what a coincidence, huh? Morgana chuckled, Izuku sharing a laugh. Yeah, I guess things like that happen sometimes, huh? As the door closed in front of her, the maid in question suddenly hunched over in exhaustion. Ugh, talk about a mess of a place. He certainly got his money's worth with that. Izuku blinked. Her voice had dropped an octave and lacked any of the youth it had before. Something about it sounded familiar, but he would have continued on without a fuss had she not turned around. It took several moments to process the sight, but her name soon spilled out of his mouth without bidding, as his eyes went wide as plates. Kawakami-sensei. The maid froze in place, her eyes instantly meeting his. Morgana had hidden himself away as she turned around, but Izuku heard the cat gasp. The two stared at each other for a long moment, the details of Kawakami's face becoming more and more recognizable the longer it went on. The maid slowly straightened out, her face pale for a moment before she forced a smile. What are you talking about, young master? I'm just a cute maid who provides house services, MEOW, that's definitely her. And she just tried to lie about it. Izuku's jaw fell as he continued to stare. By the time he managed to shake off the shock, only one thing was on his mind. Run. Oh, I see. My mistake. I had the wrong person, haha. Izuku mechanically turned in place and started down the sidewalk. Sorry for the inconvenience, I have to be going now. Izuku froze when he felt a hand grip into his shoulder, slowly craning his head back in fear. Kawakami was right behind him with a ghastly smile on her face. Come now, young master, I would at least like to talk about our services before you go. Izuku felt sweat beat down his face. And no, that's alright. IAAGH. His protests fell on deaf ears as she dragged him into a nearby alley. She stood him in front of the wall and slammed her hand into the wall behind him, cutting off any chance of escape. Please hear me out. Kawakami's cheeks were blazing red with embarrassment. I know this looks bad, but okay, it's pretty bad. Just, please give me a chance here before you go blabbing to your friends. Izuku could see the desperation in her expression and the trembling of her body. Considering how out of sorts she was, as well as the fact that it would be unlikely for him to escape, he gave her a slow nod. Oh okay. Kawakami watched him for a moment long before breathing out, slowly retracting her arm and giving him some space. She took several steps back and hugged her arms nervously. Okay, so, obviously, yes. It's me, your homeroom teacher. Kawakami began, her eyes falling to the ground in shame. I work for this maid service on the side. I wish I had taken a job outside the city, but I needed something close to school so I could go right after. Izuku rubbed his arm, unsure what to say. Seeing that he was still listening, Kawakami continued. Look, this might be hard for a student to understand, but I need extra money right now. I don't make enough teaching, so I do this. Okay? And it would be really bad if you told anyone about this. So please don't. Kawakami looked ready to drop to her knees to beg for his silence. Izuku had to admit that he didn't understand the teacher's position and why she would need to work a second job. But if she was so desperate for work that she did this on top of teaching, one more secret couldn't hurt. Okay. I won't tell anyone. Kawakami's face lit up. Ah, really? You mean it? Yeah. I promise I won't tell. Kawakami smiled briefly until suspicion crept back onto her expression. Wait, are you just saying that to get away? And no, not at all. I promise I won't tell anyone. Izuku raised his hands in surrender. I don't know your situation, but if you're willing to work two jobs like this, I'm sure it's tough. Kawakami watched him for a long moment before breathing out, her shoulders slumping at her sides. I guess that my fate is in your hands then. Thank you. Izuku nodded, tugging on his bag strap as the two stood there awkwardly. Okay then, I guess I'll be going now. I promise I won't tell. Wait. Kawakami grabbed him by the wrist. As an extra incentive to keep silent, how does letting you slack off in homeroom sound? Izuku raised a brow. Why, you don't really need to do that, please, just accept it. It would make me feel better to know that you have some reason for keeping silent. Kawakami said with a frown. Okay then. Good. With that, I'll be leaving. We'll go our separate ways and pretend this never happened. Kawakami said, straightening out her skirt and walking out of the alley before Izuku. He watched her for a moment before releasing a long sigh. Well, that happened. Morgana popped his head out of Izuku's bag. Who would have thought your teacher would be moonlighting as a maid? Yeah, that was the last thing I was expecting to happen today. Izuku slowly began to walk out of the alley, looking around to make sure his teacher was gone now. I guess everybody has their own set of strange circumstances, Morgana nodded. So, planning to tell the rest of the team? And no. I would feel bad after making that promise. If she needs the job that bad, I won't say anything. Izuku shook his head. I just want to go home and sleep. Yeah. I'd say you hit your weird quota for the day. Chapter 32, he's ready to see you now, Naijima-chan. Thank you. Makoto smiled at the principal's secretary before walking into Kabayakawa's office. The bulbous man sat behind his desk, offering a broad, expectant smile as she entered the room. I'll be happy to let those expectations down. Ah, Naijima-san. Good to see you. Just the person I was hoping to see. He said, his voice somewhat eager. I imagine your investigation has been going well. It has, in fact. Which is why I'm here today. Makoto said, putting on one of the smuggest she's ever had. Truly, this is great news. What exactly have you learned? Kabayakawa asked, no longer hiding his eagerness. Through my investigation, I learned that the phantom thieves are quite just. The immediate in the plump principal's face was priceless. After determining such, I've decided to drop my investigation. What, just like that? Kabayakawa stood from his desk and leaned on it. Why, you can't do that. I need your help on this. Oh, otherwise, the rumors and the media will never dismiss them. You must stay the course. The phantom thieves are nothing but petty criminals. I'd hardly call taking down a former world-renowned artist and exposed fraud petty, sir. Makoto deflected his begging with ease, well past any sympathy for the man. If you plan to continue your investigation, you'll have to do it without me. But what about your recommendation? I have quite good ties to many different universities and would be able to. There's no need for you to worry about that. Makoto waved him off with a smile. I've decided that, whatever I choose to do, I will do by my own merits. You may keep your recommendation. But I believe that was all I had to say today. I hope you have a good day now, Principal Kabayakawa. Makoto bowed with finality, not allowing him to try and manipulate her any further with his words. As she turned her back, she could hear his chair creak and strain as he plopped into it, leaving the principal behind to think about his own misgivings. I hope this causes you a lot of trouble. It's time you started paying the price for your neglect. Makoto held her head high as she left the office, marching to her class with newfound pride. Ugh. What a mess. Sadao Kawakami didn't even bother trying to cover up her exhaustion. She dragged her feet across Shujin's halls even more than usual, her shoulders slouched and head hung low. All she wanted was a good nap to forget her troubles for just 5 minutes. But every time she tried not to think about it, that kid's face popped up. Can I really trust that kid to keep his word? That was the line of thought that kept her up that previous night. Anxiety hit her like a truck after going their separate ways. This was the kid with a criminal record, after all. Though, honestly speaking, Kawakami knew that there was something fishy about all that business. How could a quirkless kid end up with an assault charge, after all? No matter what complaints Kamoshida might have had, which were now completely null due to obvious reasons, Izuku was an upstanding student. His start was rough, but he quickly climbed to the top of his class and nearly the top of the first years in grades. He rarely chatted with his own classmates, but Kawakami hadn't missed when he would spend time with Sakamoto and Takamaki. Whatever kind of troublemaker Sakamoto might have been, he didn't seem to influence the young man the way many would have expected, herself included. In fact, some had said that the opposite might have been happening, with Sakamoto skipping less classes and doing somewhat better in his grades. Still, that doesn't mean I can trust him. Kawakami thought bitterly. He didn't even want to accept her offer to slack off in class. Perhaps that was a weak form of bribe. But it wasn't like she could pay him or Kawakami-sensei. Bread-filled Kawakami as Jano's grating voice scratched against her eardrums. Kawakami put on the best polite smile she could muster and turned to her fellow teacher. "Hello, Jano-sensei. Is something wrong?" "Quite a bit, actually. I've been meaning to speak with you for some time now," Jano declared, the dark-skinned teacher impatiently crossing her arms over her chest. "Yes, well, we've all been busy lately, have we? Because it seems to me that you're always gone before everyone else," Jano accused, narrowing her eyes. Ugh. Why does she have to be such a nosy harlot? Kawakami had been expecting Jano to come at her like this for some time, but hoped to avoid it as long as possible. Their relationship wasn't bad, per se. They were usually civil. But ever since the Kamoshida incident, Jano had been sniffing around the other teachers. Something Kawakami really didn't need at the moment. "Look, as I've told you before," Kawakami began, hoping to dig up one of her old tired excuses. But out of the corner of her eye, she caught a small glimpse of Midoriya standing close by, watching their exchange curiously. Crap. Not now, of all times. "Oh, hello Midoriya." Kawakami turned to him with a neutral frown. "Get home safely." He seemed uncertain, his eyes dancing between both teachers frantically. "Come on, kid. Please don't bust me. Not like this," and to Jano of all people. "As I was saying, Jano-sensei, I have a previous engagement I need to get going." Kawakami wanted to turn tail, but the glare Jano wore warned her against that. "We aren't done talking, Kawakami-sensei. Our school is in a precarious place right now and we need every teacher to be on board," Jano declared, stopping her short once again. "We can't handle another scandal right now. Every teacher is being looked at closely. And yet you're always the first one to leave and you barely make it to faculty meetings. Please tell me you're not running around at night. You have no idea, Jano." Kawakami rubbed her right arm, unable to come up with a good excuse on the spot. Jano caught her at probably her worst moment, the exhaustion and anxiety mounting even more as this conversation stretched out. Excuse me." Kawakami turned to see that Midoriya had yet to leave yet and had now approached them. "Not like this school will be closing soon, Midoriya-kun. You should be getting home soon," Jano said, her voice far more polite as she addressed the first year. "Or did you have a question for us?" "Why yes, I wanted to see if Kawakami-sensei was still going to help me today." "Huh?" Tadeo's eyes lit up as the green-haired teen looked at her, his eyes conveying a quiet message to her. "Help you? With what, exactly?" Jano asked, turning to her curiously. "Why, of course. I was just getting ready to meet you soon." Kawakami quickly played along, giving a quick nod before turning back to Jano. "You see, Midoriya-kun lost some time in school because of his record. So to catch up on some subjects, I've been tutoring him here and there." "Why yes. Thanks to Kawakami-sensei, I've been able to get my grades up." Izuku nodded furiously, his own fake smile enough to make Sadeo wince. "Come on, kid. It's not that hard to lie." Kawakami turned back to Jano, who watched them for a moment longer. "So you've been taking time to help your student personally?" "Well, his grades are top-notch from what I've heard," Jano hummed, rubbing her chin before smiling. "If that's the case, how marvelous. Truly, you've done an outstanding job. You're the example that needs to be followed in this school." "Good job, Kawakami-sensei, and sorry for suspecting you." Jano made her swift exit after giving her praise, leaving the two behind. Kawakami released a tense sigh before looking at Midoriya, who seemed just as relieved as she was. "Well, that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, but it worked out. You helped clear me of her suspicion, so thanks," Kawakami said, feeling honestly grateful. "It's okay. I know you said you've got it tough right now," so Midoriya nodded, rubbing his arm awkwardly. "Seriously? How did this kid get an assault charge?" Kawakami had to set the stray thought aside as her own more pressing matters resurfaced. While he didn't seem to push the subject of why, she felt she at least owed him something of an explanation. "Hey. Can you come with me for a bit?" she asked. "Huh? Oh, sure." Kawakami waved for him to follow, leading him toward the end of the first-floor hallway. While it wasn't occupied, she couldn't help but feel anxious over trying to speak at school. "Okay, we can't do this here, but here, take this." Kawakami fished out one of her business cards from work, pushing it into Midoriya's chest. "This has my work phone and address for my job. Call the number and request me. I'll explain what I can then." "Okay." Okay." Midoriya looked at the card, almost as if debating to take it. "You don't have to call today, but do it soon." On top of telling you a few things, I still need money. Kawakami not so subtly muttered the last part under her breath. Huh. Never mind. We'll talk later. With that, Kawakami left Midoriya behind, feeling some of the weight on her shoulders. If Midoriya was planning to rat her out, he would have done so already. She at least trusted that he would keep her secret until he called. It seems the comments have started to pour in the past few days. But the majority of them seem to be negative, Yusuke announced to his teammates, scrolling through the fansite's forum. The team had gathered at Shibuya's train station, deciding to meet now that interviews with the police were finally over. That's not much of a surprise. We do live in a society with a system built around pro-heroes, after all. Makoto spoke as she stroked her chin. For a group of vigilantes to get this kind of attention is more surprising to me. Still, it bugs me that we're getting so much hate. We're not hurting anybody that doesn't deserve it. Ryuji huffed, the faux blonde standing a short ways away from Yusuke with Anne. I'm a little more surprised we haven't had any pros come out and outright reject us, though. Anne pointed out, twirling a finger in her twin tail. We're lucky that we've avoided their attention, at least. I think that's because any pro-hero that might be investigating us wouldn't want us to know. Izuku pointed out, looking down in thought with his brow furrowed. Even if they did, their answers would all be the same. We're against the phantom thieves. Even if some of them supported what we did, they wouldn't want to publicly support a villain. Still, their refusal to acknowledge us is enough for people to accuse us of being frauds. It's quite daunting on its own, Yusuke admitted, stuffing his phone away. We were just starting to get people to believe in us, Anne sighed, disheartened. All we gotta do is take down another hotshot, yeah? Ryuji offered with some hope. Have you found another target for us to take down? Yusuke asked, only to earn a groan in response. As if. I've been looking every night, but all I've come up with is bunk. Ryuji sighed in frustration. His attention drifted to Yusuke's legs, noticing a canvas and a small amount of luggage. By the way, what's with that stuff you've been hauling around? Ah, this. I've decided to move out of the dormitories. It was not only filthy, but noisy as well. No true art can be crafted in such a place. Said Yusuke, a hint of disgust in his voice. So what are you gonna do then? You can't go back to that shack, right? I was planning to stay at Anne's place. I even purchased a thank you gift. Anne blinked owlishly at Yusuke, the artist smiling hopefully at the twin-tailed blonde. I hope it's to your parents' liking. Yusuke was quite proud of the selection of sweets he made. After much deliberation and debate with the clerk, he doubled down on the most extravagant box available to his meager funds. He wanted to leave a good impression on the people who would be taking care of him from now on. What? There's no way you're staying at my house. Yusuke recoiled the moment she said that, his heart shattering. Impossible, you're the impossible one. Ryuji huffed. I spent all of my money on the most delectable sweets, Yusuke admitted, looking down at a gift box on top of his luggage. All that trial and error gone to waste, that's not the issue here. Perhaps you shouldn't have jumped to the conclusion that Anne would just accept the idea, Yusuke. Makoto sighed, offering a sympathetic smile. Will the school take you back? Izuku asked this time. I suppose, but to return to such a place and try to create art is unimaginable. Yusuke buried his forehead into his hand and shook it. Don't you think you're being overdramatic? Ryuji deadpanned. Well, if it's that much trouble, I suppose I'll have to extend my hand. Morgana said, puffing his chest out as he leaned over Izuku's shoulder. Come stay at our place. It's a little dirty, but you'd have plenty of space. What? Izuku's eyes bulged out of his head. Morgana-san. You can't decide something like that on your own. Come on, Izuku. We're doing this for a valuable teammate. Are you really going to say no? Morgana waved him off. But if you would be willing to accommodate me, I would surely appreciate it. Yusuke quickly took Izuku's hand, bowing in appreciation and turning the green-haired teen pale. You guys are putting way too much pressure on him. Ryuji said, trying to come to his aid. You live in a cafe, right? Anne asked, curious about Izuku's strange living situation. You had mentioned that before, but I wasn't quite sure what you were talking about, said Makoto. Yes, Sakura-san preferred it that way. Izuku nodded, still unsure himself about why it was like that. Saying still, this is, not only is Yonjin a short distance, but the cafe is also only a minute walk from the station. Morgana swiftly interrupted. You know, I'm really curious about it. Why don't we all go there now? Anne suggested in excitement. In fact, we should throw our party there for Madaram's change of heart. Oh, good idea. We can make it Yusuke and Makoto's welcome party, too. Ryuji chimed in. It would be good to get to know the state Midori's been living in, Makoto said, an amused smile spreading across her lips. Wait, guys, it's decided. Let's get going. Anne proclaimed, leading the way with Ryuji following shortly after. Guys, it's been so long since I've hung out with friends like this, it's so exciting. Makoto smiled, quickly following after the two. Izuku's shoulders drooped at his sides as he was ignored, looking over to Yusuke who followed last. I apologize for any inconvenience. And so you know I do prefer to sleep on a futon. Yusuke smiled before dragging his luggage behind him. Izuku could only sigh, slowly trailing after the others as he accepted his fate. I'll leave convincing the boss up to you. Please stop, Morgana-san. The gentle yet intoxicating aroma of coffee filled Yusuke's senses. He filed into the cafe after Ryuji, sparing a look around at the matcha-colored seating and walls. A man stood behind the counter on his right, organizing several jars of coffee beans in place, at first paying them no mind. That smells amazing. Yusuke quite agreed with Anne's sentiment. This place looks pretty dated, but I don't hate it, said Ryuji. Sounding impressed despite his first words. I believe that's what people call retro, Yusuke pointed out, familiar with a few of the terms students in his class drop now and again. I'm back, Sakura-san. Izuku announced himself from the back, causing the gentleman behind the counter to turn. Hey, welcome Sakura, as Izuku called him, raised a brow in minor surprise, his eyes scanning across Yusuke and the other students. Who are they? Hi there. We're Izuku's friends, Anne waved with a friendly smile. His friends. And two girls, too. The barista muttered, his eyes lighting up. Hello. I hope we're not imposing by stopping by. Makoto bowed gratefully behind him. We just thought it would be nice to hang out together. Izuku's helped us out a lot lately. Anne added, causing the him to bristle at the compliment. Heh. I bet it's you all that's been helping him out. Sakura said, smirking at the twin-tailed blonde. No, really. He's been great. You don't have to say all that. Izuku shyly rubbed his head, a bashful smile on his lips. Yusuke couldn't disagree with Anne. It wasn't long after joining the group that he realized how much the others looked to Izuku for confidence and wisdom, even if he rarely showed it outside of the metaverse. While the green-haired teen didn't always exude the confidence he carried himself within the metaverse, his earnest personality made it clear that he was a very reliable person who would do anything for the people around him. It's nice to hear that firsthand about him. Now that he's got a few ladies around him, maybe you'll help him stop sputtering so much around other girls. Sakura-san. Sorry, we can only do so much in that department. Anne giggled teasingly. Anne-senpai, heh. Why don't you all take a seat? Consider this round on the house. Sakura kindly offered before looking at Izuku. You help serve them, alright. Understood. Izuku smiled again, quick to grab an apron from behind the counter and work on the percolator behind the bar. He crushed some beans in a grinder, mouthing numbers to himself as he counted. You seem quite familiar with those tools. Yusuke watched him with some interest. Since he's living here, I thought I'd teach him a few things. He's still got a lot to learn, but he's picking things up fast. Sakura explained, his voice carrying some pride behind it. Izuku soon set out a cup of coffee for everyone at the table. Yusuke drank in the scent of the steaming liquid for a moment, blowing on his cup to cool it enough to drink. Once the steam had dissipated a little, he took a sip. The piping hot drink immediately flooded his taste buds with a rich rounded bitterness, akin to biting into a bar of dark chocolate. The velvety smooth liquid effortlessly flowed down his throat with a clean finish. Yusuke wouldn't say he drank a lot of coffee, but he could appreciate a cup or two now and again. Wow, it's delicious. Anne voiced Yusuke's own impression. Indeed. There's a great depth to its acidity. So this is the coffee sis likes, I can see why she enjoys a cup now and then, Makoto said next to him, allowing the steam to hover by her face. Is it really that good? It's just coffee. Ryuji asked, looking at them in wonder. Out of the group, he was the only one who elected to get a soda. It is. Oh, that reminds me. I think I saw LeBlanc in a magazine. Is this the same place? Anne asked. That was a long time ago. Sakura smiled, looking pleased to hear her mention such. Whoa, seriously? Okay, lem try. Anne didn't stop Ryuji as he reached for her cup and took a sip. His reaction was instant, his face crunching up as he let out a gasp. Bleh. Ugh, it's so bitter. This has to be cruel and unusual punishment. He quickly set her cup back in front of her before gulping down his soda. I was the same way when I was a kid. I didn't much like coffee, either. Sakura chuckled, not offended by Ryuji's reaction. Sakura-san seems to be quite understanding. Yusuke thought, remembering Izuku's initial words about his guardian. Something about him putting on a tough facade but being a kind and good man underneath it. So far, it seems that the coffee shop owner didn't even bother to put up his facade and had been quite accommodating to them. How refreshing to see a guardian act as one should. Since you brought your friends all the way here, why don't you take them up to your room? No need to stay down here. Sakura suggested, pulling Yusuke from his thoughts. I wanna see. Anne grinned in anticipation. Yoka. The taste won't leave my mouth, Ryuji complained as he slowly stood from his chair. I have been meaning to see it. I do wonder if it's how I imagine, Makoto said, a sly look on her expression. What does she mean by that? You guys can go on ahead. I'll help Sakura-san clean up, Izuku suggested with a smile, focusing on the pots in front of him as he turned off the flames. Not needing to be told twice, Yusuke followed Ryuji and Ann to the stairs. I'm surprised you don't care too much. Especially considering the stuff you have up there. Yusuke didn't pay shopkeeper's words much mind, moving up the steps to wait. Don't go. Izuku squealed as he leapt over the counter to beat him up the stairs, causing Yusuke to turn around and question. Makoto smiled though, urging him forward. What was that, Midori? We can't hear you all the way up here. Yusuke didn't understand, but allowed himself and the others to be shoved forward by Makoto, who giggled as they made their way up. Hey. What are you shoving for? Yusuke blinked as the four of them reached the top of the stairs, taken aback by the absolute sight before them. Posters stretched out across the walls, depicting All Might. Statues of that same hero sat on a shelf on the wall by his bed. It was as if a shrine to the number one hero had been built and was erected in Izuku's room. No way. Ann covered her mouth, holding back her laughter. I knew he liked the guy plenty, but damn, Ryuji's jaw hung low as he gazed around. It's almost exactly like how I remember. Ah, memories. Makoto grinned, linking her hands behind her back as she took a look around. Though, I have to admit, there seems to be more restraint. I wonder if that's on purpose or just a lack of memorabilia, so Izuku has always been a deep admirer of All Might, then. Yusuke framed his fingers together like a frame, glazing over the room to see what would make for a good picture. Why yes, Yusuke looked back at the stairs to see Izuku hunched over in embarrassment, his face red as a tomato as he twiddled his fingers. I've always looked up to him. Yusuke could relate to that. He wasn't sure what inspired Izuku to follow the hero so deeply, but he had felt a deep admiration for Madaram at one time. If the shack hadn't been so modest, and the paintings aside from the Sayuri had actually been Madaram's, he might have hung up several in reverence of his former mentor. You can act so cool in the metaverse. But it doesn't change the fact that you're a big nerd, huh? Ann giggled, walking up to Izuku and patting his head. The patronizing comment only made Izuku retreat further into himself. You really need to spice up your room, man. Put some posters of chicks up instead of All Might. Though I guess you wouldn't want to bring any of the girls here with those up. Ryuji laughed, Yusuke watching Ann send a glare his way. What? You know, just to add variety or something. Oh. Like a poster of Midnight. She's a hero and a babe. That'd be so okay, Ryuji. We get it. Makoto sighed, moving further into the room and taking a seat on Izuku's bed. Aw, did I miss it? I wanted to see you guys react to his room, too. Morgana whined as the cat clambered up the stairs. See, can we move on? Izuku asked meekly, dragging his feet over to the workbench at the corner of his room and taking a seat. Still, the fanboy stuff aside, having a big old place like this to yourself is pretty crazy. Ryuji pointed out, leaning against the armrest of the couch by the wall. I know. I thought it'd be way dirtier. It's pretty clean in here, though. Ann sounded genuinely surprised by that revelation. Seriously? That's it? Well, before we get ahead of ourselves, why don't we start our meeting? Morgana suggested, walking over to Izuku. You wanted to talk about our next move, right? Yeah. Now that things have started to calm down, more people are starting to turn on us. Well, I don't want to rush into anything, we should start considering who our next target will be, Izuku said, his expression hardening as he talked business. Ah. There's the face of our leader. The thought briefly crossed Yusuke's mind. It was hard to say that he wasn't impressed by how quickly Izuku could transition from one state of mind to the next. I agree. Even though we've brought more to our side, we've also brought more people against us as well. Even on the fan site, there's constant bickering about whether we're just or not. Yusuke spoke up, pulling out to check the website again. Gah, this is such crap. We're helping people and people think we're a bunch of criminals. Ryuji snapped, stomping his foot. Not so loud. We don't want anyone overhearing us. Yusuke hushed him, the faux blonde grumbling in response. Though honestly speaking, I feel your frustration as well. Yeah. We're going to make people more worried rather than give people courage and sighed in disappointment. We need to keep pushing so that our presence continues to influence society. None of us have any idea who we can pursue. Morgana asked, looking around at the team. None that I can think of. Well, heroes aren't perfect, it's difficult to say that they don't get the majority of targets who would attract our attention, Makoto pointed out. And any target we go after has to be someone under their radar, said Izuku. What do you mean by that? Yusuke asked. It's as Kodo-sen said. Pro heroes handle the most obvious cases and do a good job at dealing with them. Our job as the Phantom Thieves is to put a stop to people who have evaded the law through hiding or influence. Because it's people like that who are hurting people in silence the most. Izuku explained for him, causing Yusuke to nod his head. Of course. Perhaps I've been looking at this the wrong way, then. Yusuke stroked his chin. Instead of focusing on people so loudly pronouncing their crimes, we need to start looking into rumors surrounding so-called good people in positions of power. Well said, Midori. I think Yusuke's right. We need to start looking in different places, Makoto agreed with him before frowning. Though, honestly speaking, that makes our jobs a lot harder. No kiddin'. We were having trouble finding people as it was. Now we gotta start from scratch. Ryuji rubbed his hair furiously. I guess being a phantom thief was never going to be easy. Anne shrugged, leaning forward on her knees. But maybe we're thinking too much about big cases, Izuku brought Yusuke's attention back up. We should keep a closer eye on the fan side and make sure we help the small cases too. We don't want to lose sight of our mission by neglecting people asking for our help. Of course. I'm sure that if we ask Miss Hima and Shiho, they'll be able to sort out who needs our help at the moment. Morgana nodded his head. It's good to know we have such a diligent leader. I do hope I can remain just as groo. I'm so hungry, apologies, Yusuke mumbled, looking down in embarrassment. I haven't eaten since yesterday. And you spent the last of your money on those sweets. Anne's question made Yusuke wish she'd brought the sweets up to consume himself. Though perhaps he should give them to Sakura-san. Just how much money did you have? Ryuji said, shaking his head. I can ask Sakura-san if he'll make you some curry if you like. Yusuke's eyes lit up, looking to Izuku. Would you be willing to do so for me? I would be in your debt. Yusuke bowed until his head was nearly touching the floor. Why, you don't have to go that far, wait, you should hold off on that. Yusuke almost felt hurt to hear Anne deny him of potential food. Don't look at me like that. I was going to say that since we're talking about food, we should save it for our welcome party. Yusuke felt his anxiety fade, looking more thoughtful this time. Oh. I believe that would work for me. But what shall we do? There's a portable stove over there. Maybe we could cook something. Makoto pointed toward the cluttered shelf that held many random items on it, clearly left alone by Izuku. Oh, I know. Let's make a hot pot. Anne suggested eagerly. Oh, that sounds great. I heard eating hot pot together brings people closer. Said Morgana, the cat perking up at her idea. This doesn't seem to be the ideal weather for hot pot, but who am I to say no? Makoto adapted rather quickly. Anything with meat's fine with me. Ryuji stood up from his seat on the ground with a smile. I only ask that we finish our meal with porridge. Extra parsley, of course. Yusuke suggested eagerly, feeling his mouth nearly water at the idea of food. We'll have to be careful not to burn anything, but I'm up for it. Izuku smiled in excitement. Ah, yes. It would be quite unfortunate if we were to melt one of your statues or burn the posters. We should take extra care. Yusuke wanted to be mindful of Izuku's room. You're right. It would be such a shame to mess up some of Midori's oldest collectibles, wouldn't it? Makoto seemed to agree, though the artist couldn't help but notice her teasing tone that made Izuku slouch over with red cheeks. Did I say something wrong? Ugh, we definitely ate too much. Anne was stuffed. When they had gone shopping for ingredients, she couldn't deny that they perhaps had grabbed one too many things for their meal. Considering there was 6 of them, it seemed like a valid idea at first. But looking at the table now with half-eaten morsels left behind, she knew that it was too much. I can't eat another bite. Ryuji echoed her own feelings on the matter. Anne was honestly too tired to even comment on it, though. Her eyes grew heavy, begging to close and sleep off the meal she had greedily consumed. That was delicious, Lady Anne. You'll make a fine bride. Sorry. Anne couldn't stop herself from yawning, checking out from whatever flattery the cat might try to pay her. But I'm going to have to borrow the sofa. She put her bag at the edge of the couch, laying down and leaning on it like a pillow. As she tried to fall asleep, she felt eyes on her. Let her sleep in peace, you two. Makoto's scolding voice spoke before she had to. Anne smiled as she felt the eyes leave her, thankful for the older teen's intervention. Is everything alright, Yusuke-senpai? She heard Izuku, though just barely, as Anne began to drift off. We haven't finished our meal yet. What about the porridge or even the udon? No way I can keep going after all that. Anne checked out from there, drifting into a light sleep. She could still hear their voices faintly, though not their exact words. Ryuji's voice stuck out over the others, of course, due to his usual volume. Though, Anne drearily noted that his voice lacked its usual luster for the most part. He was at least trying to be considerate as she slept, for the most part. Oh, Anne and I. We used to go to middle school together. She barely made out his words. Hearing his voice, Anne's dreams drifted to their middle school days. She remembered the dark-haired boy who sat next to her and made funny faces. He was clearly interested in her looks, but eventually befriended her even after she deflected his dumb lines. She remembered their trip to the aquarium. When all the other kids grouped up together, Anne was left alone. She remembered seeing Ryuji trying to tell his friends to let her join when she pretended not to listen. When they rejected, he left them to join her. Ryuji had been one of the few good things about going to middle school in Japan. She had never told him and had no plans to as to not let him get a big head over it. But Anne knew he understood without having to be told. She hadn't met Shiho yet, so Ryuji ended up being the only good friend she had. So when they reconnected the way they did like in middle school, it made her happy. He could be loud and obnoxious, and Anne knew she could be a bit overbearing, but they still got along so well. They put up with each other when no one else tried, and it meant a lot. In fact, the two had grown even closer than before, now that they shared a common goal together. I wonder what he thinks of me now. It was that stray thought that brought her out of her light sleep. She was still tired and kept her eyes closed, hoping to fall back asleep. That's such bullshit. You got an assault on your record for that guy. You told me this story already and it still pisses me off. Ugh. So much for that idea. Despite her complaints, Anne listened more intently, wondering what elicited such a volatile response from the faux blonde. Not that it takes much to set him off. The woman sounds quite horrible as well. She stayed quiet this whole time. Yusuke didn't sound so pleased either. Putting two and two together, Anne guessed easily this was about Izuku's trumped-up charge. Hearing you describe it so deeply, I can't help but be angry. Makoto sounded like she was about to don her biker outfit and beat someone down. Who could do such a horrible thing to a teenager? Those officers involved were no better either. It's okay guys, really. I've gotten past it now. Of course he's going to be the sweet boy as usual. Anne felt a small smirk edge its way on her lips. She could understand all their frustration though. Izuku was willing to lash out when pushed, but he was still soft-hearted for the most part. It made Anne, and likely the others by extension, want to be angry for him instead and protect him. Not only is he our leader, but our precious first year, too. Even so, that was unforgivable what they did. That man is the perfect target for the phantom thieves. Morgana sounded as pissed as Ryuji. Who is this scoundrel? Where can we find him? I don't remember. It was dark and everything happened so fast. Izuku sounded troubled, almost as if he were getting a headache thinking about it. I didn't see him or the woman after that. My trial wasn't long, either. I didn't even hear him talk about it and I'm getting mad. You can't remember, huh? Well, I suppose that is a rather traumatic experience and likely put you in shock. I can sympathize, not being able to remember important details of your life, to think that it hurt you that much. Injustices like that are why we're all here today, Midori. I have no hesitations whatsoever. Anne was impressed with the conviction in Makoto's voice. It goes to show how much she had changed since joining them. I'm really glad she joined us. Hell yeah. You said it, Makoto. We gotta show the world exactly what they don't see. The shitty acting like good guys. Loud as ever. But honestly, her speech got me fired up, too. Yes. I fully believe that's why we've come together like this. I will also put forth my utmost being into dealing out justice to those deserving, even when angry. Yusuke's speech remained elegant. Eyes Anne peered an eye open to see Izuku giving a genuine smile, standing up at the head of the table. Right. I'll be counting on all of you. Don't leave me out of the group rally. Anne smiled as she pushed off the couch. Ah, sorry. We wake you up? Ryuji said, he and the others taking their seats. Nah, I've been awake for a while. Anne shrugged before furrowing her brow. Just know that I feel the same. I'm ready to tackle the world if that's what it takes. As stout as ever, Lady Anne. Morgana praised as usual, the cat raising its head proudly. Anne looked around the room at each of her friends, a thought popping up in her head. Something that should have been obvious, but only occurred to her now. It's strange, isn't it? She voiced her thoughts, the others looking at her in question. While I was listening to you guys, I felt like I've known you all forever. Is it because we all have similar backgrounds? Well, it sure ain't cause of anything good. Ryuji's smile was enough to tell Anne he shared her thoughts. The only one who doesn't fit in is me, said Morgana, his usual egotism replaced with uncertainty. I don't even know my past. What are you talking about, Morgana-san? You brought us together, didn't you? Izuku's voice was genuinely kind as he smiled. He's right. We could look around the world and never find a bigger misfit than you, either. Ryuji gave a dumb grin, being surprisingly supportive of Morgana despite their typical rivalry. And the reason we're going into Momentos is to get your memories back. Yes. Once we've brought them back to you, I'm sure your past will be as checkered as ours. Yusuke smirked. No doubt. HMPH. We'll see about that. Morgana scoffed, trying to sound tough again. I actually feel like I've known Morgana just as long, too. I don't really know why, but I can't put it into words, Anne suggested, putting a finger to her chin. Look, I'm helping you guys out for my own sake. Don't get me wrong. Anne smiled and rolled her eyes. If you guys don't get stronger, investigating Mementos will be nothing but a pipe dream. That sure was a quick turnaround. 1 second you're depressed, the next you're actin' all tough. Anne silently giggled as she nodded in agreement. All jokes aside, let's take this as far as we can. Anne said, deciding to throw in her own 2 cents. I want to punish the corrupt adults and give everyone the courage they need. Even if the heroes turn on us, we'll keep helping. Ha. You can say that again. Ryuji wooted in support. I'm sure that I'll be able to grow as an artist and as a person as I continue to be a phantom thief. Yusuke smiled in agreement. Of course. You'll be under my tutelage after all. There's nothing we can't do together. Anne might have rolled her eyes at Morgana's boast, but honestly felt inspired by his confidence. There's so much I've allowed to pass me by because I've wanted to be the good girl. I won't let that hold me back any longer and will continue to pursue my justice alongside all of you, no matter what anyone else says. Makoto put a hand on her chest, her expression stern. And with Izuku acting as our leader, nothing can stop us. Anne decided to make sure that the lone third year wasn't left out. If you'll all keep following me, I'll keep doing my best not to let you down. Izuku said, pounding his fist against his chest. Anne smiled at his proclamation, happy to see him act confident even outside of the metaverse. As she started to cool down, Anne fished her phone out, eyes bulging when she saw how late it was. Wow, is that really the time? Guess now's as good as any to call it a night, Ryuji suggested. Oh, that reminds me. Boss said you're free to crash here, Yusuke. Anne said, glad she didn't forget. That's very kind of him. Yusuke smiled in appreciation. You were able to convince him, huh? Good job laying on the charm. The way Ryuji put that made Anne groan. Don't say it like that. It sounds weird. I won't be able to go to sleep unless I take a bath. Anne looked back at the artist when she heard his mumbling. There's a bathhouse near here you can use. I won't be able to join you, though. Morgana supplied helpfully. That sounds great. I wanna go. Ryuji said excitedly before looking at Anne. How about you girls? You guys go on ahead. I should get going. Anne shook her head, standing from her seat and picking up her bag. I'll walk with you. I can take a shower at home. Makoto volunteered, standing up with her. Do you want me to walk with you? Anne smiled when Izuku volunteered, but shook her head. We don't want to put you out. But it's sweet of you to offer. We'll be fine, Midori. I'm sure Sakura-san can see you're making plenty of progress talking to girls as is. Izuku's face turned a shade of red, making Anne hold in a giggle as she walked by and patted his head. We'll see you guys later. Huge bathtubs really are the best. The girls are missing out. Ryuji stretched his arms out as he let his body sink deeper into the water. Izuku and Yusuke sat a short ways away from him. Ryuji might have thought it was the perfect way to relax if not for one minor detail. It's a bit hot, though. Yusuke voiced Ryuji's thoughts, causing the faux blonde to sigh and look back. A wrinkled old man was turning away at the water valve, filling the bath with more and more hot water. Old people just like it hot, for some reason. He'll stop eventually, though. Ryuji shrugged, not entirely bothered by it just yet. I'm a little concerned elderly people should only bathe in water a little bit above average body temperature, Izuku mumbled, causing Ryuji to raise a brow. Maybe that's why they go nuts on it. They usually doesn't get to bathe in this kinda heat all the time. It sure as hell doesn't do us any favors though. Ryuji let his thoughts drift to other things in distraction, his lips quirking into a smile as something came to mind. But back to the girls, what do you guys think of them? Izuku squeaked like a mouse. Ryuji didn't think his face could turn another shade of red so quickly while they were in the bath. Come on, don't act like you haven't thought about it. Ryuji leaned over and nudged Izuku in the side. I know you've known Makoto the longest. Be honest, was she your childhood crush or something? Well, what? And no, nothing like that. Ah, yes. I was quite interested in that myself. Yusuke joined in, holding his chin. I meant to ask before, but we got distracted. You've known Makoto longer than Ryuji has, Anne, correct? You both even have nicknames for each other. Well, yeah. Izuku looked down nervously, scratching the back of his head. We lived in the same neighborhood 10 years ago. She was my first real friend aside from, well, yeah. She moved a few years after that though, so we only reconnected when I came to Shujin. I figured as much. Though I wonder if there was someone else. Ryuji thought curiously, leaning on the edge of the bath. So how'd you meet? This is kind of embarrassing, but Koto-san saved me from a few bullies. Izuku laughed sheepishly. After that, she said she would protect me if it happened again. So we hung out a lot after that. I see. I've noticed that Makoto is somewhat protective of you. I suppose that even after all those years, she still feels the same. Yusuke suggested. No kiddin'. Before she joined us, she was trying to make him quit being a SHHH. Izuku and Yusuke motioned to the old man, Ryuji pursing his lips. Well. You know what I mean. So it's a good thing she joined up in the end. Ryuji tilted his chin up as another thought occurred to him. But how'd you end up with a nickname like Kodo-san for her? Sounds kinda masculine to me. Ryuji raised a brow when Izuku laughed in embarrassment. Well, don't repeat this to Kodo-san because she got pretty mad when I told her the first time. But when we were kids, Kodo-san was a tomboy and dressed a lot like a boy. So I thought she was. Ryuji took a minute to process the information before letting out a loud bark of laughter. Dude, no way. You thought she was a boy, for how long? For the first month. Damn, that long, no wonder she was pissed. Ryuji could barely contain himself, feeling his lips splitting into a large grin. How'd you find out she was a girl? She showed up one day in a skirt and I didn't recognize her the first time I saw her until she called out to me. Izuku sank into the water, barely keeping his mouth above it as his eyes looked distant. She smacked me and ran away when I blurted out, "You're a girl, dude, that's like the last thing you should have said." No wonder she was mad. Ryuji wiped a tear out of his eye. Despite the fun he was having though, he couldn't help but note that it was still getting hotter in the tub. He shot a look back at the old man. Okay, you can cool it now, Gramps. Fascinating. So your friendship began with the idea that she was a boy like you. Before shifting drastically, Ryuji brought his gaze to Yusuke, the artist holding his chin. It certainly seems like an interesting circumstance. Though if that was your nickname for her before you found out she was a girl, why not change it? Oh, I guess it just stuck. Izuku shrugged honestly, raising from the bath again. She didn't seem to mind that I called her Kodo-san, so I didn't think it over that much. Huh. Guess it makes sense. Ryuji nodded in understanding. You guys were calling each other by that long enough, that change in it would have been weird. I see. It makes me a little jealous, if I'm being honest. Ryuji raised a brow at Yusuke's words. You both share a past with two of our closest comrades. Unfortunately, I never had a close friend like that growing up. Ryuji felt a bit awkward after hearing that, rubbing his hair. Well, hey man. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, Anne and I were pretty cool in middle school, but I don't think it was anything like Makoto and Izuku. You and Anne. Ryuji turned back to Izuku, who stared somewhat distantly. Huh? Oh, sorry. I was just thinking of something. Morgana-san said. Izuku waved his arms in dismissal. Huh? What did he say? Ryuji scrunched his nose up, wondering what kind of insult the cat might have tossed his way behind his back. And nothing important. Just something about you and Anne-senpai being together. I mean not being together. Or Hummy and Anne. Ryuji blurted out, the idea enough to make him stand from the bath. Where's that dumb cat getting those ideas? Well, it's more like he says there's no way you two would be together. Yeah. Izuku quickly amended his words, holding a finger up. Huh? What's he talking about? Would that come up in the first place? Ryuji felt even more annoyed to hear the cat hurling those kind of ideas out. Probably because you two spend a lot of time together. Even if it's just because you're friends, I think he was getting the wrong idea. Izuku held up his hands in surrender. Seeing he was getting a little too aggressive, Ryuji slowly sank back into the water. So what if we hang out? It's not like we do anything. Most of the time she's just dragging me around while she shops. Ryuji had been a little more flustered by the idea than he expected. He didn't mean to snap at Izuku for something he didn't say. But Morgana should have minded his own business. It's not like they were secretly dating. TCH. That nosy cat. So then, you don't feel anything for Anne? Ryuji's eyes snapped up to Yusuke in disbelief. Where'd that come from? Well, you questioned the nature of Izuku's relationship with Makoto. It only seemed fair, the way Yusuke said that made Ryuji's eye twitch. If it were anyone else, Ryuji would think he was messing with him. But knowing the artist by now, Ryuji knew he was genuine in his question. I mean, she's got great looks and all, and she's pretty fun to hang around. Ryuji scratched his hair awkwardly. But she's kinda overbearing, you know. I don't know if I'd be able to handle that. You think so? Ryuji's gaze drifted back to Izuku, the green-haired teen looking up in thought. You both get along so well, though. Even when you guys argue, it's like you know what to expect from each other and go on like it's nothing. How we do? Ryuji blurted without thought, feeling flustered again as Izuku floated the idea around. Sorry. I was just thinking out loud. Izuku laughed awkwardly, looking away from him. I mean, I know you're both just friends, but I guess it doesn't seem impossible. For real. Ryuji looked down at the water, mulling over the thought. He obviously didn't hate Anne, but she could definitely be a handful. But then again, she is pretty fun when we chill together. Ryuji thought back to their shopping trips. They were tiring, for sure, but he wouldn't say outright that he hated them. Me and Anne, huh? He could feel his body heating up. Was he getting this flustered just from the idea, or no, that wasn't it? He was literally heating up. Outrageously so, in fact. The water hadn't cooled down a mite since they got in. And it was finally starting to get to him. Gah. I can't take it anymore. Ryuji stood from the bath and jumped out, his eyes darting to the old man, still turning the water valve to the hottest point. How much do you have to add until you're satisfied, Gramps? The old man either didn't hear him or didn't care, as he continued to turn the valve for more hot water. Effin' unbelievable, Ryuji groaned before looking at Izuku and Yusuke, the two beginning to climb out of the bath. Anyway, forget whatever we were just talking about, okay? It'll make things weird. Really? I thought this might be a good way to enrich your relationship with Anne. She might want to hear what we've said. Ryuji nearly slipped on his feet with how serious Yusuke sounded. Hell no. Don't tell her anything. This stays between us guys. Please. Ryuji might have sounded a little desperate at the end there, but anything if it would keep the artist from saying something to Anne. Anyways, we should keep our ears to the ground. Izuku came to the rescue with a change in subject. We've got a lot of digging to do since we have no clear idea who our next target could be. Yeah. Sounds good to me. Gotta focus on the big problems. Ryuji nodded fervently. You're right about that. Ryuji was thankful Yusuke didn't push any further. I'll ask around at my school as well. There might not be much there, but it's worth a shot. And I'll keep browsing the internet. We'll meet next week when everyone's ready. Ryuji breathed out, the three grabbing their towels and moving to the changing room. He tried to not think about it, but of course his mind drifted back to the idea of him and Anne. He felt his cheeks flash a bit, which didn't help the already forming heat headache. Welcome back, inmate. Izuku felt bullets of sweat streak down his face as Carolyn glared at him, bouncing the baton in her hand up and down in her palm. You left in quite a hurry last time. You better be on your best behavior. Bright Izuku swallowed a lump in his throat as he tried to avoid eye contact with her. The prisoner has returned, Master, Justine announced, the small smirk at the edge of her mouth, the only indicator that she was aware of the tension. Stand up straight in the presence of our master. Izuku jumped as Carolyn needlessly smacked her baton against the bars. She's definitely still upset, the bonds that you have reeled in are quite intriguing, Igor's voice dragged Izuku's attention forward. They are much like you, in that they have been unfairly labeled by society and are standing up against their fates. Izuku felt it strange that Igor seemingly knew so much about his friends. But regardless, Izuku agreed. We're not going to stand by and take it anymore. We have the power to stop it, so we will. Not just for us, but for everyone who needs it. Your conviction stands true. It is no wonder that your heart has inspired theirs in turn. Izuku blinked, suddenly feeling a bit bashful to have that said so plainly. Don't get a big head, inmate. It's the least you should be capable of. Carolyn huffed, turning her head to the side and tapping her foot. Still, it remains remarkable to me that one such as the prisoner would be capable of that. Izuku looked at Justine this time, the twin meeting his eyes. You continue to shatter expectations. Thanks, don't encourage him, Justine. Geez. Carolyn complained. Outcasts standing against society at large. Igor seemed to pay their words no mind as he continued. In other words, you are picaresque. Deepen your bonds with them. Those will become the strength that fuels your rehabilitation. I look forward to your continued progress. I will even if you didn't tell me to. Izuku kept the thought to himself, knowing that it would have sounded rude. He still didn't like having his bonds being treated as a means to an end. He wanted to get closer with everyone regardless of the benefits to his power. I will grant you an ability befitting of your growth. To be able to hold more personas within your heart at one time. Izuku's eyes lit up at his words, immediately interested in the offer. Consider it a gift. It shall help you further in your rehabilitation. Continue devoting yourself to it and I am sure you will succeed. I thank you. Izuku bowed in appreciation, knowing that anything he could gain from Igor would help him and his friends further their goal. Smash full confidant. Rank 5 Izuku straightened out, holding his fist out in front of him as he felt determination wash over him. I'll keep getting stronger and stronger. I'll keep fighting alongside my friends. And I promise we'll grip the fates we're chained to and break them. We'll build our own future. The twins stared at him in shock while Igor remained quiet. Izuku smiled at Igor before turning back to his bed and laying down, deciding to wake and move forward with his plans. As he faded back into the real world, he didn't hear Igor's dark chuckle. We shall see, trickster. He will see you now, sir. Ah, thank you. A young man in his late 20s stood from a plastic chair, adjusting the square-framed glasses resting on his nose. He wore a white doctor's coat over a casual baby blue dress shirt and a loose hanging tie. His pants were beige and wore slippers instead of shoes. His light brown hair was scruffy and a line of stubble ran beneath his chin. He moved past the school secretary to the room with the plaque of Principal Kabayakawa resting next to it. Walking inside, the bespectacled man was greeted with the sight of the overly obese man. Good morning, sir. My name is Takuto Maruki. Sorry for the delay. He bowed in apology with a curt smile. Ah, Maruki-sensei. It's quite good to see you. Kabayakawa greeted, pushing off his desk to rise from his chair. It has been a rather trying time for the staff and students. I do hope you're ready to start. Well, now that I'm here, I can start whenever you need me to. Excellent. I'm ever so glad to hear that. I'll have my secretary provide you with the personal files of each student most directly involved in all of this nonsense. Takuto raised a brow at his wording, but offered a sheepish smile and nodded. Of course. I'll be sure to talk to any of the students in need. I'll do my best to help them out with any issues I find. That is reassuring. Shujin Academy is in a tough position right now, and the last thing we want are students who may be feeling deeply troubled by these past events. I'm sure morale will rise with your aid. Kabayakawa rubbed his hands together, striking Takuto as a little more eager than he expected. And while you're at it, there is something else that I would like to ask of you. Oh? What else can I help with? You see, this might sound strange to you, but lately there has been dreadful rumors about these phantom thieves of heart. Have you heard? I did see some things on the news, as well as what was mentioned about that Madaram fellow. Takuto tapped his chin and thought. What about them? Well, this might be absurd to think of, there is a chance that some of the students might know something of them. I was hoping that, while you're counseling them, that you might be able to inquire about such things. Takuto frowned. But, sir. Shouldn't my priority be the students' mental well-being? Of course. I don't wish to distract you from your main job. I would just like to have the delusion of these phantom thieves dealt with as well. Kabayakawa's words were far too rushed to sound genuine, his concern beginning to seem superficial. After all, the rumor of their existence will only create more unrest among the students. If that happens, it will be hard to help any of them. Wouldn't you agree? Takuto felt a small part of his heart sink. Kabayakawa's priorities were clear as day. He was barely considering the feelings of his students and was focused on the so-called phantom thieves that were giving the school a bad name. But Takuto knew it would not be beneficial to anyone if he were to outright deny his request. I see. I'll do my best to help out in this matter, then. Takuto put on a smile of acceptance, watching as Kabayakawa brightened immensely. Ah, thank you Maruki-sensei. I expect big things from you. Kabayakawa moved around his desk, reaching out and shaking his hand. Today, we'll hold an assembly for the students and introduce you. That way anyone who might need your help will know who you are. I see. I look forward to meeting the students. Chapter 33 Izuku's day began rather oddly. Instead of the usual morning class, a sudden assembly was called to the gym. Kabayakawa had called it as an acknowledgement of the students' possible mental issues left by Shiho's attempted suicide. Izuku didn't buy that for a second, of course. He never liked to assume the worst in people, but Kabayakawa's neglect of the students in favor of the school's reputation disgusted him. Surprisingly enough, they had hired a seemingly kind, if a bit quirky, doctor to act in light of the possible problems that had risen around the school. Ryuji seemed doubtful of his intentions, seeing the doctor only as a way for Kabayakawa to cover his ass. Izuku would have agreed at this point. But then the doctor, Takuto Maruki, reached out to Ryuji and Anne personally. Izuku's impression of him was the same, kind yet quirky. Maruki asked them all to try and speak with him with the offer of sweets and mental tonus training as a deal sweetener. It was kind of funny, but at the same time Izuku found his words to be genuine. So he suggested that they give him a chance. Anne and Ryuji were reluctant but gave in, with Anne deciding to speak with him first. Maruki then asked Izuku if he would meet him after school, which he agreed to. Oddly enough, just the simple agreement to meet Maruki-sensei had resulted in the forming of a link between them. The consultant link, to be precise. Izuku wasn't sure what to make of that, but he assumed that he would find out soon enough. Anne. Hey, so I went to the counseling. Izuku. Ah, good. How was it? Anne. It wasn't as bad as I expected. Even though he's older, Maruki-sensei is easy to talk to. Anne. You're going to meet him now, right? Izuku. Yes, I am. I'm glad it wasn't bad. I'll see you tomorrow. Anne. Right, see you then. Well, I guess you might as well get this over with, said Morgana from over his shoulder. But at least Lady Anne didn't seem opposed to him. Maybe the doctor will be helpful. Maybe. Though I'm not sure what to talk about. Izuku admitted with a nervous laugh. Well, whatever you do, don't talk about any phantom thief business. Morgana pushed a paw against his cheek. I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but sometimes you're a little too honest for your own good. I won't, I promise. Izuku waved his hands in reassurance. As he turned the corner to head to his office, Izuku raised a brow when he saw his newest classmate, Kasumi Yashizawa, speaking with Maruki. He didn't want to interrupt, slowly moving off to the side and waiting. Kasumi took notice of him though, turning and giving a curt smile. Oh, hello Midoriya-san. Were you planning to meet with Maruki-sensei? Hi Yashizawa-san. Izuku greeted back awkwardly. Yes, Maruki-sensei wanted to meet after school. I see. Sorry for taking up his time, then. Kasumi turned full to Izuku. If it helps, you should know that Maruki-sensei is a good person. He helped me out before I came to Shujin Academy. Don't be afraid to speak openly with him. Really? I see, Izuku mumbled, finding some reassurance in her words. While he and Yashizawa hadn't been friends per se, she was kind to him every time they spoke in class. Oh, do you two know each other? Maruki asked with a curious brow raised. A bit. He's in one of my classes and sits next to me. Yashizawa said with a kind smile. Well, I don't want to hold you both up. I'll be heading off now. Right. Take care, Yashizawa-chan. Maruki waved. Goodbye. Izuku bowed his head politely. Once Yashizawa was gone, Maruki smiled at Izuku and waved for him to follow. Come in. Izuku propped his book bag over his shoulder, following the doctor into his office. Welcome. And thanks for giving me the chance and coming by. I didn't see much reason to refuse. Izuku said as he spared a look around. From the looks of it, Maruki was taking up residence in one of the nurses' offices in the school, the usual resting beds and medicine cabinets spread across the room. The difference here was a leather couch and chair set at the center of the room with a coffee table in front of it. So, Midoriya-kun, I'll be honest and say that I was told about some of what happened before you arrived at Shujin. Izuku wasn't surprised to hear that, knowing that the school would likely inform the counselor of all people. It seems like you went through a rough patch. How are you doing now? I'm doing better now. It was tough at first, but Izuku felt a gentle smile spread across his lips. But I've made good friends since coming to Shujin. What happened wasn't great, but it ended up being okay in the end. I see. I'm happy to hear that. I don't know the circumstances of what happened, but I did hear that things got even more difficult for you when your record appeared online. Maruki smiled. But seeing that look on your face, it looks like the best still came from it. I've also heard your grades are rather high. You've done well to adjust in the time you've spent here. Thank you. Izuku didn't know what to really say to that, a shy grin on his face. Still, I can imagine that you've faced some adversity because of it. You live in a society that looks down on those it feels go against the grain. That's part of what I wanted to talk about. Maruki said, causing Izuku to raise a brow. We live in a reality where we must live two lives. People want to do well in school. They want to get the job they want. They want to get a perfect score on their test. They want to help people who need it. Izuku visibly tensed at that. Maruki noticed, but continued on. But the reality of it is that not everyone can live up to those expectations. There are always those little gaps that exist that keep people's plans from going the way they want. Not everyone can ace a test. Not everyone can be a hero. What happened to you, the things you've suffered, it wouldn't be a surprise if it had distorted your reality, and Izuku's gaze trailed to the coffee table, causing Maruki to hesitate. Midoriya-kun. Did I say something wrong? Izuku looked back at Maruki and forced a smile. No, it's not you, Maruki-sensei. It's just that I wanted to be a hero. For the longest time. Izuku's expression summered up, thinking of his friends and his work as a phantom thief. I came to terms with the fact that it could never happen now, but I still wanted to fight that gap you mentioned. I knew about it a long time ago. Ever since I found out I was quirkless. I guess I'm still fighting it now, but I'm being a different type of hero. I see you're amazing, Midoriya-kun. Izuku blinked, looking back at Maruki in surprise. You've faced adversity that most your age can't even imagine. Yet you still managed to stand tall despite it all. Maruki let out a sheepish chuckle and smiled. Sorry. It must be weird to hear that from an adult you just met, huh? Apologies if my questions were a bit too honest. Izuku stared at Maruki-sensei in awe. Most of the adults around him, at least at the school, had brushed him off as a troublemaker. If his grades hadn't picked up, most of them would still view him as a nuisance. But Izuku found himself spilling more than he meant to with Maruki, finding a strange amount of comfort in someone who he barely just met. It's strange, but I feel like I can actually talk to him about this stuff. Was it his welcoming smile? Or perhaps clumsy demeanor that disarmed him? Izuku couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. I think it's fine, Maruki-sensei. Izuku said slowly, giving a gentle smile. Sorry to burden you with my problems, though. No. Not at all, Midoriya-kun. That's exactly why I'm here. Maruki shook his head in reassurance. I'm glad you were able to open up to me the way you did. In fact, after hearing you talk, I have something I'd like to admit as well. If you don't mind me sharing, of course. Oh? What is it? The truth is I wanted to be a hero too. Izuku's brow raised. Ah, really? You did, it's true. Initially, I wanted to help people in need by being a pro-hero like most kids. But it sadly was a gap I had to face, too. I'm not quirkless, but mine isn't something impressive either. Watch, Maruki's hand began to glow as he held it out to a wide-eyed Izuku. From his palm, small spheres have sprouted out, hovering above like a small cloud of fireflies. As they spread throughout the room. Izuku watched in interest as Maruki flexed his fingers, making them move around at will. Amazing, Izuku mumbled. It certainly looks cool, I suppose. But aside from being a good emergency light or a show for entertainment, my quirk has no uses in combat. The lights dissipate once they hit something solid and have no weight. Maruki snapped his fingers and the lights disappeared all at once. Still, even knowing that, I searched for a way could make a use out of it. But in the end, it just wasn't meant to be. The quirk that produces light, I could see how that wouldn't be very applicable in combat, but Izuku began to mumble, his gaze falling to the ground as his brow knitted. But perhaps it could be used in rescue scenarios. It would also be good at distracting enemies in the midst of combat, but it would be a very brief use in combat. It would definitely serve better for a rescue hero, but a hero does have to be able, Midoriya-kun. Izuku drew his eyes back to Maruki, the doctor giving an awkward smile. Izuku quickly understood, his cheeks flushing. Sorry, Maruki-sensei. I got lost and thought it's okay. I was just surprised, Maruki laughed, giving a more genuine smile. I wonder if you would have found a more practical use for my quirk. Still, what's done is done. The gap was too wide for me, and I decided to become a doctor. I can still help people this way, and I've found it rather fulfilling. Still, I can't help but love heroes and what they do. Maruki leaned forward, looking curious as well as a bit shy. Sorry if this is a bit much to ask, but from one fan to another, who's your favorite? All Might, of course. Izuku answered without hesitation, an almost childish-like whimsy to his smile as he spoke. I know he's everyone's favorite, but he's just so amazing. Ha, don't worry about that. He's my favorite too. Maruki declared, rubbing the back of his head bashfully. It's kind of lame to admit, but as an adult it's hard to talk to others about it. Most of them see hero praising as a kid thing, now. Yeah, I can see how it might be like that. Izuku gave a sheepish laugh, but smiled. Still, I love heroes, and not just All Might. If you ever want to talk about them again, Maruki-sensei, I'd love to. Really? You'd listen to an old man like me gush? Maruki looked genuinely surprised, but also touched by the notion. He suddenly shook his head, snapping himself out of his momentary shock. Sorry. I think I lost track of our original discussion, huh? But it's getting late. I'm sorry that I took up so much of your time. Izuku checked his phone, seeing that it was getting well past 5 by now. I see. It's alright though, Maruki-sensei. I honestly thought that we had a good talk. The same to you. In fact, it felt like we both got to learn quite a bit about the other today, Maruki chuckled, leaning back in his chair. I find it very easy to talk to you, honestly enough so that I have a request to make. A request? Izuku parroted. Yes. You see, I would like for you to come back again. Not just for counseling, but also to help me with my research. Maruki's expression sobered, eyes firm as he spoke. I'm doing a research project along with my counseling job, something called psychological therapy. It's a bit different than counseling. To sum it up, it's research to understand the people's hearts. If my research works, then it can help a lot of people. That's what I think. What do you say? Izuku was taken aback by the determination in Maruki's voice and the conviction in his expression. He didn't quite understand what it is they would be doing or how he could help, but the doctor's desire to help others was admirable. I'd like to help, Maruki-sensei. Izuku gave a firm nod before a more sheepish look crossed his face. Though I'm not sure how based on what you've said. Forgive me. I guess I got ahead of myself, huh? Maruki cleared his throat, his awkward demeanor returning. What I mean is I'm asking if you could just help me with my research. I just want to continue talking with you. I want to know how you see things and how you think. I'll even open up my schedule for us to speak. And you can have as much sweets as you want. Maruki motioned to the bowl of candies that Izuku had left untouched. Why, you don't have to bribe me with candy, Maruki-sensei. Izuku awkwardly laughed. Ha, sorry. Still, I'd like to pay you back for your help. Somehow Maruki stroked his chin. That mental strength training I offered before was serious. If you help me out, I can really teach you a few things. Really? What exactly will it help me do? Izuku asked, unsure what mental strength training would even provide. Consider it a special course. I have a great deal of knowledge to share and may help you tap into a wealth of potential mental ability you never knew you had. It might sound confusing right now, but it'll make sense once we begin. Well, if you think it will help with my schoolwork and if it helps my mind, it may help my personas too. Izuku gave a smile. I'd be happy to help, Maruki-sensei. Great. Then we have a deal, eh? Maruki smiled back in relief. Izuku felt the bond between him and Maruki form, the doctor's winning him over without even realizing it. Smash consultant confidant. Rank 2. Is it because we're kind of similar that our bond formed so quickly? Izuku couldn't help but wonder, staring at Maruki for a moment. Ah, yes. We should exchange numbers since we'll be working rather closely together on this. Oh, sure. I'm never giving up Moto. He belongs to me. It makes him happy. The thieves had taken on several targets for Momentos that day to make up for lost time and help as many of the cases available to them. It was a chance to keep their skills sharp as well as practice their team attacks. It was difficult to find the best combos on the team, but right now his biggest concern was their current target. A girl at their school was pushing around and abusing a boy that worshipped her, taking full advantage of his feelings to do as she pleased to him. She was the last on their list for the day, and they weren't letting her go unpunished. Izuku stared down Shadow Shimizu as he dodged her attack, her form becoming that of one of his own personas, Yaxini. He quickly returned the favor, summoning Carter to his side. Kauga. Carter cocked its arm back and unleashed a fist of light, blasting it into Shadow Shimizu and knocking her back several meters. Gah. Panther. You're up. Izuku called out to his teammate. You've got it, hero. Dance, Carmen. Anne chanted, her busty persona taking shape and unleashing a torrent of flames upon Yaxini. Graagh, how dare you, the shadow cried as it was knocked on its ass. Can't you see you're just getting in the way of love? Bullshit. Ryuji scoffed, speeding past Anne and swinging his barbed wire bat overhead. All you're doing is abusing a guy. He slammed it down toward the shadow's head, but Shadow Shimizu managed to put her guard up first. When you're licking my boots, we'll see if you talk so tough. Made you look. Ryuji grinned, causing the shadow to flinch. It looked up, only to see Mikoto flying through the air at her. Her gloves had been removed and her fists glowed like hot red metal. You're done. Mikoto slammed her burning knuckles into the shadow's jaw before unleashing a full barrage of fists with blinding fury, fire searing into the shadow, with each fist denting its body. Mikoto threw one last punch, sending it sailing back into the ground. She landed on the ground with a not-so-graceful thud, lurching forward with one knee up and her fists at her side. Good going, Road Warrior. Ryuji grinned. Don't call me that. Mikoto glared back at him. Good job, you two. Looks like she's down. Izuku said, running over to join them with Anne and Morgana close at his heels. Looks like our combo idea worked well. Your quirk is so cool, Queen. I can't believe you were able to absorb the heat from Carmen's fire like that. Anne praised in her excitement. Thank you. I've been trying to think of more ways to work with my abilities on top of what we can already do. Mikoto explained. Looks like our team is only getting stronger by the minute, huh? Morgana rested his paws on his hips. It seems our opponent has yet to transform. Yusu informed them, having been the one to keep an eye on Shadow Shimizu. The shadow weakly attempted to sit up, groaning in anger and pain. Why you monsters? I'll never let go of Moto. It snarled, raising her sword. You're clearly outmatched. Give up. Yusu quartered, holding out his hand to the shadow. To his surprise, he felt his magical energy flush and suddenly he released a small Bufu spell. It struck the shadow right in the face, causing it to whip its head back and fall once again. The others quickly rushed to his side, staring in awe. Dude. What did you just do? Ryuji asked in awe. I'm unsure, it seems that she's transforming. Morgana pointed out, the teens looking up to see the shadow shrink back into its human form once again. No. I don't want to lose him. The shadow whined, assuming a more vulnerable stance as she hugged her arms together. He's mine. Isn't he? If he's so important to you, then abusing him is a horrible way of showing it. Mikoto declared, putting a hand on her hip. She's right. He'll hate you in the end if you stay that way. Izuku pointed out, shaking his head. I could never stand that, Shimizu's shadow admitted, casting her gaze to the ground. Why did you mistreat him like that in the first place? Asked Anne. He just went along with it one time and I misunderstood and thought I could do whatever I wanted. Actually, I wanted to be more than friends with him. More? So you actually wanted to be with him, yeah. I had a crush on him, but I ended up becoming possessive and my feelings got out of control. The shadow sighed, understanding its own fault now. Well, you better stop now or you'll just make things worse for yourself. Tell him how you really feel and don't abuse him anymore. Scolded Anne. Shimizu gave a weak smile and nodded before dissipating. Left behind was the small treasure, Izuku reaching forward and taking it in hand. He blinked when a whip sword solidified in his hands. Well, I guess I kind of get it, he laughed nervously, scratching his cheek with his index finger before handing it to Anne. I think you'll get the best use out of it. Oh, this is nice. It's much cooler than a regular whip. Anne smiled, swinging it around to get a better feel of it. Another case solved. Good job, team, we really went on a roll today. Morgana praised, turning to the others with pride. That's great and all, but can we talk about what Fox did? Ryuji asked, turning the group's attention to the newest member of the Phantom Thieves. How'd you shoot ice like that? I thought you just make ink come out of your fingers. I do. But that felt like when I summoned Gomen, Yusuke muttered, extending his arm toward the empty train track. I wished to summon him and deal out an attack, but that's what came out instead. So then you think you used the power of your persona without summoning it? Izuku asked, intrigued by this development. If that's true, then maybe we all can. Whoa, for real? Ryuji blanched, head spinning on a swivel. It's not implausible. Personas are an extension of our being, after all. Morgana pointed out. Oh, then we should all try too. Anne suggested, skipping to the front of the group and extending her arm out to the empty side of the tracks. Everyone gathered around, waiting as they watched Anne close her eyes to focus. Come to me, Agi. Without much effort, a small ball of fire formed in her palm before shooting out, bursting against the opposite wall. Anne grinned brightly, turning to the others and doing a small hop of joy. I did it, guys. It works. No effing way. That's awesome. Lem try. Ryuji dashed up alongside her, extending his hand and taking a moment to focus. His face morphed a bit as he seemed to have trouble at first, but electricity soon sparked from his hand before crackling out and firing forward. He laughed like a child, turning to Anne and smiling. This is effing cool. It's like we got another quirk or something. Yeah. She and Ryuji high-fived, quickly turning back to the others. You should all give it a shot, too. Come on. Izuku shared a glance with Makoto and Morgana and nodded, the four quickly jogging up next to the blondes and raising their arms. Frey. Kauha. Geru. With a small amount of focus, the three soon released their desired ability, firing it out like a gun in their hands. Izuku's entire face lit up in awe, eyes shining as he felt the power that the others talked about. I thought a persona was amazing, but it feels so natural. Is this what it's like to have a quirk? If ever Izuku desired to have the ability to summon his persona in the real world, now was one of those moments. How long could we actually do this for? Was it just because we didn't think about it, or is it because we're stronger now? Makoto drew Izuku out of his thoughts. I'm not sure myself. I hadn't realized we could extend the power of our personas like that until now. Morgana admitted, looking down in minor shame for his naivety. It's like you said. As an extension of our inner selves, it is only natural that such is possible. Yusuke said, extending his hand and firing off another ice ball. Still, something to note is that the strength of our attacks do seem weaker when used in this state. True, but they still have decent energy output, Izuku mumbled, looking down in thought. It feels less draining than when we use the spells through our personas. If the output is proportionate to the amount of energy spent, the damage it does is probably low. But if we use to conserve energy against weaker shadows, then hero. Izuku blinked before looking up at Makoto. You're mumbling. Right. Sorry. Izuku's face flushed as he rubbed the back of his head. Still, this is a great discovery we've made. We'll be able to use our magic without having to summon our personas while we're here. This will save us a lot of energy as we keep getting stronger. This will help the team dynamic of attacks, too. We've already been incorporating our strategies with our personas, this will make things even easier. Makoto suggested with a hint of her own excitement. Man, this would be perfect for me. Ryuji exclaimed, grim annoyance coloring his face as he let electricity crackle across his hands. If my knee wasn't effed up, I'd be able to run top speed all the time. I could totally work with this. But arg. Hey, don't push yourself. It's not like you can help it. Anne reached a hand out in sympathy. Ryuji relaxed at her touch but still looked like a kicked puppy. Izuku frowned at his frustration, but that was swiftly replaced with enthusiasm. Actually, Skull. I think I have a way to help you with that. You do? But our healing stuff doesn't work on my knee. Ryuji looked back at him, half hopeful but half doubtful. Yes. Remember when I told you to give me the details about your injury and your measurements? Hatsume-san finally got back to me. Izuku explained with excitement. Tomorrow, come with me to UA. Welcome back, my humble guinea pig. And just in time for a test. Izuku audibly gulped when Hatsume greeted him and Ryuji. She had informed him the night before that, in exchange for the knee brace, Izuku would definitely be participating in another test. He wasn't looking forward to it, to say the least. But he wasn't going to back out now. And you brought your friend. So this is the one with the malfunctioning quirk. Mei's head snapped to Ryuji in a blink, causing him to minorly flinch. Up. Yeah, that's me. Ryuji nodded, intimidated by Mei's eccentric gaze. Great. Go ahead and take a seat for me. You can either take off your pants or raise the pant leg above your knee. Up to you. Mei turned back to Izuku. As for you. I have one new item for you to test before we move on to your friend. Okay. What exactly am I testing today? Izuku asked. Mei quickly zipped her way over to him, shoving a small item into his hands. Izuku's eyes lit up. Is this a grappling hook? Indeed it is. Mei confirmed with a fervent nod. It's definitely not my most original piece, but I was having fun watching some old spy movies. While the wire arrow is good for making quick turns and moving around on the fly, the grappling hook I've constructed is perfect for single-place movement. It'll carry you to your desired position quite fast and could even be used to snatch at the back of a target. Depending on their build, of course. Holy shit. A grappling hook, Ryuji gawked, looking over Izuku's shoulder in awe. That's effing awesome. You could totally use that in Izuku's eyes darted to Ryuji, the faux blonde quickly getting the message. In another school. I mean, it'd be sweet as hell to whip out during big hero tests, right? Why yes, but I'm just testing this out for Hatsume-san. I'm not taking it with me, Izuku explained, looking at Mei. Indeed. Speaking of, why don't we get started? Hatsume didn't wait for Izuku to answer, quickly shoving him back outside. She turned him back around to face the warehouse. Alright. This test should be simple enough. All you have to do is take aim at the top of the roof and let it pull you up. Easy as that. I see, okay. Izuku nodded in understanding, gripping the grappling hook in hand. Hey. Shouldn't you pad the ground or something? Ryuji asked in exasperation. What if he falls halfway up? Ah, yes. I suppose that is a safety precaution we should take. Sorry, I was simply excited to see the baby in action. Mei laughed it off, causing Izuku to deadpan. You. Guinea pig number 2. Go and retrieve the floor padding against the wall. Hey. When did I become your other guinea pig? Ryuji complained, but quickly complied for Izuku's sake. After laying out the safety pad on the ground, Izuku quickly took position on top of it, looking up at the roof. Alright, Midoriya-kun. Anytime you want to start. Hatsume encouraged. Be careful, dude, Ryuji mumbled, still unsure. I'll be fine. Thanks, Izuku tried to reassure him. Izuku took a deep breath, looked up at the roof's edge and took aim. Finding his spot, he pulled the trigger. The hook flew out of the gun and latched onto the edge without issue. As soon as Izuku released the trigger, the grapple gun tugged him forward. He nearly lost his grip on it as he was yanked off the ground. But as he was nearing the edge of the roof, Izuku felt his instincts kick in. He quickly pulled with both hands against the grappling gun, flipping upward to avoid hitting the edge of the roof and landing safely on top. That was surprisingly easy. A month ago he probably would have broken his nose against the roof. His time in the metaverse was paying off. Hatsume-san. I think it works great. Dude, that was sick. You looked awesome. Ryuji cheered from below. A perfect result. Incredible. Mei grinned ear to ear, eyes sparkling. It looks like my baby is for action. Okay, you can come down now, Midoriya-kun. Okay. Izuku spared a look around, suddenly finding his lips tightening up. How do I get down? Guinea pig number 2. Retrieve the ladder from the garage. You didn't think that part through. It wasn't long before Ryuji came running back with a ladder, allowing Izuku to climb down safely from the roof. With that, Mei ushered them back inside the garage. Alright. Now that my baby has been tested, it's time to try out your friend's baby. So how's this gonna help my knee? Ryuji asked slowly, taking a seat on the bench inside, his pant leg rolled up for Mei to inspect. If the damage done to your knee is what you said, then the issue you're facing is likely a leakage of the energy stored within your knee. Mei explained, her attention focused on something on her worktable, ratcheting away at something unseen. If that's the issue, then the baby I've created will help keep the energy contained within your knee from leaking out. If you say so, Ryuji mumbled, unsure as he looked at Izuku. She's not gonna blow my knee up with this thing, is she? And no. Of course not. Izuku's eyes briefly drifted to the scorch marks that still stained part of the floor. At least I don't think so. I haven't blown up yet, at least, you're really not filling me with confidence. Here, Ryuji sighed, looking fearful as Mei walked back over to them, holding out a knee brace. Here. Put this on. Ryuji took it in his hands for a moment, he and Izuku inspecting it. It wasn't as bulky as expected, a black brace with 2 miniature turbines on the side like an engine. So do I just strap it on, or? Allow me to show you. Mei took it out of his hands before pressing a release on the brace that split it in half. Now, just a quick heads up, you may feel a slight not so slight pinch. What do you mean not so sly, ga? Ryuji screamed as Mei locked it into place. It felt like his knee was caught in a press. The brace hissed and whirred, tightening and bending as it slowly conformed to the shape of his leg. Ryuji-senpai, are you okay? Izuku asked in worry. That was the pinch I told you about. For this to work, the brace has to perfectly fit around your knee. That way, your ligaments get maximum support and none of the energy will leak out. The brace's internal systems will control the heat and pressure so your knees won't burn out too quickly, allowing you to run as long as you want. Mei explained, watching as Ryuji clutched his knee in agony. Are you sure I can't even run with it like this? Ryuji groaned as he reached for the lock, tempted to rip it off. Of course. You just have to test it now. Mei said, crossing her arms proudly. Why don't you go for a quick run around to gather some of that energy up? Sure, I guess might take a while, though Ryuji admitted, slowly standing up and wiggling out his leg. Well, considering your knees are basically batteries, we could always try and charge them up with outside sources. Mei whipped out a rather dangerous-looking taser, letting it crackle for emphasis. Wait. I think he should just go with the jogging. Izuku waved his arms urgently. Actually, I want to try that out. Izuku's head spun as he turned back to Ryuji. I want to find out if I can actually do that. Cause if I can, it'd be pretty useful. That's the spirit. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Mei grinned ear to ear, holding the taser out. Let me begin. Hey. At least let me do it. Ryuji huffed, not liking how she edged toward him with it. Mei's expression morphed into disappointment, turning the taser around for him to grab. When you go to charge your bad knee, put the taser to the brace. It should immediately redirect the electricity within and contain it in your knee. She said, taking a few steps back as she waited to watch her baby go to work. Are you sure about this? It might just end up hurting you, Izuku asked pensively. I gotta try it. Otherwise it won't be as useful down the line, you know. Ryuji declared, gulping as he held up the taser. If I can make this work, it'll mean I can do even more for the gang. Besides, Ryuji turned a small smile his way. If you're doing her crazy tests for us, this is the least I can do, right? Izuku stood there for a moment, opening his mouth to say something before closing it and taking a step to the side. I'll try to catch you if this doesn't work. Thanks, bro. Ryuji took a deep breath before turning the taser down, holding the button and starting the current. He then pressed it against his left knee and winced as 50,000 volts flowed into his knee. To his surprise, the jolt was fleeting, like he'd been zapped with a joy buzzer. The feeling was replaced by a tingling surge that raced down his leg. Haha. It's workin'. It's actually workin'. Hell yeah. Wow, your quirk is amazing, Ryuji-senpai. Izuku grinned like a child, delighted and relieved to see that their idea worked. Now try your knee brace. It should do the job. Mei urged him, hopping up and down in uncontained excitement. Ryuji pulled the taser off his left knee before tentatively pressing it down on the brace. Starting it again, a charge gauge appeared on the side, filling up from red to yellow in seconds. Ryuji's knee tensed and quivered the way it always did when it gave out. But the brace held it together, allowing him to fully charge it up. Once the meter turned green with a satisfying ding, Ryuji pulled the taser off and jumped to his feet to get a feel for it. I feel pretty good. Ryuji said, wiggling his right leg out. It usually just hurt to charge it up before. Perfect. Now, for the real test. Mei said, taking several steps back. Test out your speed. See if you can maintain it without hurting yourself. Alright. Let's give this a shot. Ryuji took a deep breath before crouching down into a runner's position. Izuku and Mei stood off to the side, waiting for him to start. The brace whirred to life as he charged up. In a flash, Ryuji dashed to the other end of the garage, stopping on a dime just before he could hit the wall. He nearly tripped as he slowed down, but found his footing and kept his balance. The grin he gave Izuku would put All Might to shame. Dude. It works. I can run without it hurting. Ryuji exclaimed, laughing like a kid in a candy store. He crouched low again before bolting forward and back again, leaving the scent of ozone in his wake. Dude, this effin' rocks. I can actually run again. Izuku beamed as Ryuji dashed around to his heart's content. He turned to Mei, giving her a deep bow. Thank you, Hatsume-san. This is better than anything I could have imagined. Yeah, thanks. Ryuji dashed back over to them, giving Mei a deep bow of his own. I haven't been able to run like this in years. It's awesome to be able to do it again. You're a genius, Hatsume. I'm happy to hear it. Bringing this baby to life does make me feel quite proud of my work. Mei crossed her arms over her chest. Now, on top of the knee brace, you can feel free to keep the grappling gun as well. Izuku lit up in surprise. Really? Are you sure? I didn't think you'd give it to me right after testing it. That was just a project for fun. Consider it a gift for your help testing what I've made so far. Mei dismissed, waving a hand. The sports festival is coming up, and with your help I've made all the perfect adjustments needed to make sure my babies operate at full capacity. I see, so you're going to participate in the sports festival. Izuku nodded in understanding. Wait, you can use that? I thought only quirks were allowed, asked Ryuji. That's for the general education and hero courses. Since we're devoted to support items, the support department is allowed to use whatever we've made. Mei explained, holding an index finger up. With the babies I've been making, I'll be sure to show off their stuff for the big corporations to see. Getting a sponsorship will be a cinch. So that's why you wanted to get those items tested, quickly Izuku muttered before smiling. Then I'll accept the grappling gun. Thank you again, Hatsumi-san. Of course. Just see it as a sign of my appreciation as well. May gave him a thumbs up. Smash Fortune Confidant. Rank 4 besides, I'm sure if I give you a couple of toys like that, you won't be able to help yourself. You'll be begging to come back and test more of my babies. Maybe even take on some of the more dangerous ones. May rubbed her hands together greedily. Izuku paled. Please keep those kinds of thoughts to yourself, you really do got it rough, dude, that was an amazing thing you did for Ryuji today. Morgana gave Izuku a feline smile, propped over his shoulder. Evening had fallen, and the two headed back home in Yonjin. I don't know if I'd say something like that. I mean, if I have a way to help him, of course I would do it. Izuku shook his head, smiling. Seeing how happy Ryuji-senpai was about it, I'm glad I took a chance with Hatsumi-san. And we walked away with a new gadget on top of it. Morgana reminded him. Our little visit today was beyond beneficial. See? And you were afraid to go to her in the beginning. It still gets rough, but at least it's really paid off. Izuku laughed, thinking of all of the bruises he's gotten from testing her gadgets. She's been very helpful. Well, now that Ryuji's knee situation is handled and we have a new tool, we should start digging into HELLO. Izuku and Morgana blinked before looking to the sky, following the voice. From above, a young woman landed directly in front of them, causing Izuku to recoil slightly. It took him a moment to fully process her appearance, soon realizing that it was the illegal pop star that he and his friends had briefly helped some time ago. P-pop step. PHEW finally caught up to you. You really do keep busy, moving around all the time. She spoke, wiping her forehead of sweat. And that's RIGHT pop step in the flesh. If you know me, then I assume that you're already a fan, she asked, edging closer with an eager grin. No, I wouldn't say that. Izuku held up his hands as he backed up a step. She seemed to take the hint, hopping back and giving him space. Well, even if you're not a fan, that's okay. What's important is this. I, Pop Step, would like to recruit you as a member of my team. She exclaimed, causing Izuku to blink once. Then twice. What? Why? Why? Because of this. Pop Step held up a piece of paper for Izuku to see. He immediately recognized his handwriting and realized it was a page from his self-made schedule. Wow, how did you get that? Izuku asked, reaching out to grab it only for Pop Step to pull it away. He was only thankful that he hadn't written anything incriminating on the pages of his schedule. That's not important. What's important is that you've definitely got some organizational skills. And that's exactly what I need. She continued to push, waving the paper around. Organizational skills. Izuku raised a brow at that, still confused on how they got to this point. That's right. I live a rather busy life, kinda like you. But I need someone's help to figure out a schedule and make sure my concerts are under control. And I think you're the guy to do it. Pop Step gave him a wink. Izuku could only stare at her for a moment, rubbing the back of his head awkwardly. I'm sorry, but I've got a lot going on as is. Come on, it's not like I'm asking the world of you. I just want you to help me keep my affairs in order. You clearly have a good handle on yours. Pop Step pushed, taking a step closer and leaning forward, obviously emphasizing her assets to look more appealing. Please. Izuku quickly averted his eyes. Sorry Pop Step. I don't really know if I can help you, at least come look at what I'm planning. And we can go from there. She persisted, trying to angle herself each time Izuku shifted his gaze away. I don't know, it's pretty late. Izuku couldn't fathom how exactly he had gotten into this situation. There were so many things wrong with this scenario that he couldn't help but wonder how. That question alone was enough to keep him from accepting any sort of pleas from the freelance idol. I see if that's how you feel. Izuku's eyes trailed back up to Pop Step, her voice sounding defeated for a moment. Until she held up his schedule. I guess I'll just have to toss this out. Into a copier. And share its contents with the school. Izuku paled at that. What? I mean, it does have some interesting stuff on it. Something about untouchable air gun shop and a doctor visit. I'm sure it's nothing to worry about, right? Pop Step waved the paper around again. But I bet it would get people's attention to know what the new kid with a record is up to in his free time. How do you know about that? He took a step back, clutching his bag tightly. That's secret. Pop Step twirled on one foot, grinning in triumph. This conniving witch. Morgana hissed, popping out from his school bag and glaring at Pop Step. Let me at her, Izuku. Morgana-san. Izuku squeaked at the cat's sudden emergence. Oh, you have a cat in your school bag. Don't tell me you carry him around school with you. Morgana and Izuku froze when she said that, a devilish smile spreading across her lips. What else could you be hiding? Izuku's shoulders slumped at his side, realizing that he was practically cornered now. Morgana gave him an apologetic glance, lowering his ears dejectedly. Sorry, Izuku, so, problem kid. Would you be willing to squeeze me in your schedule? Upstep feigned innocence, wiggling her sides. Izuku opened his mouth as he attempted to think of a way out of this. Sadly, nothing came to him that he would ever agree to doing. With a sigh of defeat, he relented. What do you want me to do? It was a short bus ride back to Tokyo before Pop Step led him the Narahata district. Normally this area of Tokyo was quite busy, but the further they went in, the less populated it was. Pop Step. How much further are we going? Izuku asked. He pulled his bag close to his chest as they ducked through an alleyway. Not long. I'm based at the top of one of these old buildings in a penthouse. Pop Step informed him. The place is a dump, I know, and it's kinda creepy. But it works for now. Izuku wasn't feeling any more comfortable, the two soon entering an extremely old apartment complex. I really don't like where this is going, Morgana whispered over his shoulder, dropping Izuku's collapsible staff into his hand. Just in case. You should probably make sure the others know where you're at. I don't think we need to do all that, she's just an aspiring idol, right? Despite Izuku's attempt at optimism, he gripped the collapsible staff and hovered a finger over the release. His eyes darted around each corner as they continued on. Alright, here we are. Izuku looked forward once they stepped onto the roof. Strangely enough, there was a modest penthouse just like she said. The rest of our team is inside. Well, half at least. We'll see. Yeah, Izuku trailed behind Pop Step with caution, keeping a hold on his collapsible staff. She opened the door to the penthouse with a hard shove, walking in like she owned the place. I'm back. And I've brought our new team member. Izuku peered in behind her to get an idea of what to expect. To his surprise, it was a rather modest home setting as far as he could see. Even with the idle thing to consider, this was more like your average apartment than any sort of base. Then again, we only make bases out of what's available, could you at least knock before entering, Pop? A tired voice echoed from inside. Izuku looked at the lone person that was waiting for them, a small sense of recognition crossing his mind. Forget that. Look. I've got our newest member. Pop Step skipped inside, presenting Izuku like he was a prize hidden behind a curtain. He awkwardly waved back. Hi there, wow, you actually got him to come? What a shock, the young man answered, standing from his seat on the ground before raising a brow. Hey, have we met before? I think so, it suddenly dawned on Izuku. Oh, right. You were the guy acting as security for her concert. Oh. I remember now. The older teen put his fist in his palm. You were with two other friends, right? Huh. You two have met. Pop Step raised a brow. Yeah. Remember when I got caught in that mob a few weeks back? He was with those kids who warned you about the police coming. The older teen answered with a small smile. Thanks for helping out with that, by the way. That crowd sure had gotten rowdy. Yeah, you looked like you had your hands full, Izuku gave a short laugh before bowing politely. I'm Izuku Midoriya, by the way. Ah, Koichi Himawari. It's nice to have you join us. The kind young man greeted back. He reached out his hand to shake before realizing Izuku had something in his. Hey, what's that you got there? Izuku realized he was still carrying his staff. He hastily stuffed it back into his bag. Nothing important. It's nice to meet you. Koichi didn't push the subject, instead giving him a friendly smile. I see. So, Pop convinced you to help us out, huh? Much appreciated. Yeah, I wasn't really left much choice though. Izuku trailed off, looking to the side. I gotcha. Pop tends to impose on people pretty hard, huh? Koichi laughed until he was struck in the head by a flying soda can. Don't act like I'm some sort of devil. Sheesh. Pop Step hissed before clearing her throat. So, why don't you get relaxed so we can start? You can let your cat out if you want. There she goes, imposing again, Koichi mumbled dejectedly before blinking. Wait. Cat. Yeah, sorry if it's an inconvenience. Izuku put his bag down and let Morgana out, the cat hopping out and shooting a glare his way. Try to be more careful next time. You hit my head. Oh, a cat. He's adorable. Koichi grinned as he reached a hand out and rubbed Morgana's head. But why was he in your bag? Well, he's kind of needy. Izuku laughed sheepishly. Needy, how dare you? I am not. Koichi scratched under his chin, causing Morgana to purr and lean into Koichi's hand. I'm not. Oh, that's the stuff anyways, let's get started, shall we? Pop Step urged, taking a seat behind the round table at the center of the room. It's getting late, so I imagine you'd rather we wrap this up now rather than later, right? Oh, right, even though I was practically forced to come along. Izuku took a seat at the round table with Koichi, the college student picking Morgana up and seating him on his lap. So what exactly do you need me to do? Just help me organize my schedule. Maybe even help me organize the way my concerts are set up. Pop Step explained, leaning on her backhands. I've got a lot on my plate. First, I have to turn up my current rate of performances. Before that, I need to start practicing more, as well as keep my school-work balance in check. And don't forget our work as nightly heroes. Koichi interjected, raising his index finger. Ugh, yeah, I guess we can still squeeze that in. Pop Step groaned, losing whatever grace and cuteness she had paraded around before. Nightly heroes. Izuku blinked, looking between them in wonder. But aren't you illegally operating? Yup. That goes for what hero work we do on the side as well. Pop Step confirmed, causing Izuku to raise a brow in disbelief. I sort of just went along with it, but him and this Gramps we know like to run around like good Samaritans. By the way, where is the old man? He went out to look for suspects, said Koichi, looking troubled. I really hope he doesn't cause a problem by himself, we'll have to let that old coot do his own thing for now. We've got more important things to attend to. Pop Step waved a hand in dismissal, looking back at Izuku. So back to business. She noticed Izuku staring, the green-haired teen's eyes wide. What's wrong? Huh? Oh, nothing, I was just surprised, Izuku admitted, scratching the back of his head. I haven't heard about vigilantes running around in a long time. It kind of reminds me of the Phantom Thieves. Yeah, kinda like that. I gotta say, they're pretty damn cool from what I've seen. Koichi grinned, eliciting a very pleased purr from Morgana as he scratched his head. It makes me want to do even more than before. I think I like this kid right there. Yes, Morgana continued to enjoy the attention that Koichi gave him. Gah. Can we not talk about the Phantom Thieves for 5 seconds? That's all people talk about at school now. Pop Step exclaimed, pulling at her poofy twin tails in frustration. Sorry about that. It's just hard not to like them. Koichi raised his hands in surrender before leaning in toward Izuku to whisper, she's upset that they stole attention away from one of her concerts. I see. Izuku gave a quiet chuckle. Shut up. That's not important. Pop Step hissed, pointing a finger at Koichi. If she has my schedule and knows where to spread it on top of people talking about us at her school, I'm guessing Pop Step goes to Shujin as well. Izuku thought, but kept it to himself. But I don't think I've ever seen her around. Okay, enough sidetracking. Pop Step huffed, leaning across the table between them. Can you please help me organize what I have going on? It's been driving me nuts to balance everything out. Izuku scratched the back of his head before pulling out his notebook, drawing up a diagram of the week. Okay, so since you're in school, we at least know what days and hours you're free, so you want to account for scheduling your concerts, practice, study time and night work, right? Huh? Oh, yes. I think that about covers everything. Pop Step nodded, minorly impressed by the speed that he started working at. Okay, Monday through Saturday, it's probably smart for you to devote your first hour or two off to studying and homework. Maybe stay at the library to avoid getting distracted. If that's not an issue and you'd rather be here to practice once you're done, that's your choice. It depends on what you want to prioritize that day. Izuku scribbled in notes under each day. Koichi and Pop Step spared a look at one another before leaning over Izuku's shoulder, watching as he wrote. Once you've finished your schoolwork, devote an hour to your performance practice. I can't give you advice on how to improve on that aspect, but it's best to make sure you have gotten the work in so you don't get rusty. Are you planning another concert soon? Yeah, this week on Friday. How often do you perform? I'm trying to go for twice a month right now. I might need to step it up with all the attention getting pulled away, though. Okay. Then maybe consider using the day before your concerts as a resting period so that you don't overwork yourself. That or the day after, Izuku suggested, holding his chin in thought. From there on, Izuku asked for detail after detail pertaining to Pop Step's current schedule, making sure not to miss a beat or leave anything out. Izuku had to admit, Pop Step's schedule was just about as busy as his own. But thanks to all the work he had been doing the past few months, he had figured out how to juggle all of his appointments and was able to construct something similar for her. Okay, I think that covers everything. Here, take a look. Izuku handed Pop Step his notes, both her and Koichi leaning in to read them. It's kind of messy with all these notes, but it looks good. I think I can work with all of this, she said with minor astonishment. You're really impressive, huh? And you're just a first year. Koichi seemed far more impressed, raising a brow in surprise. If only they knew all of what you can do. Morgana puffed his chest out with pride. Well, I think that covers everything. You don't need anything else, right? Izuku asked, leaning on the table to push to his feet. Yeah, wait, actually, I wanted help organizing my concerts. Izuku nearly tripped over his own fight at Pop Step's request. Come on, please. It gets so hectic sometimes, and Koichi's no help. Hey, that's not fair. It's only me out there a lot of the time, Koichi complained, frowning. But it's getting kind of late. Don't you think we should let him get home now? Pop Step simmered on the thought with a grumble before grunting in agreement. Fine, you can go for now, but take my info so I can contact you about more help. Alright, then Izuku agreed, doing whatever he could to get out of the situation. He exchanged numbers and emails with Pop Step as well as Koichi, the kindly young man offering it out of kindness. Can I get my schedule back now? Pop Step narrowed her eyes, holding up the piece of paper before tearing it down the middle in half, handing it to him. You'll get the other half after you help me organize my concert. Sheesh. Talk about a devious woman. Morgana hissed, narrowing his eyes at Pop Step. I guess that will do for now, Izuku sighed, unzipping his bag and ushering Morgana inside. I guess I'll see you later. He stood back up and headed for the door, only for it to open from the other side. Izuku's eyes bulged out of his head when a large muscular masked man walked in casually before looking down at him. Oh hey sensei. Welcome back. Koichi called out casually. Huh? Who's the squirt? The looming figure asked as he stared down at Izuku through wide eye patches in his mask. Izuku opened his mouth to speak before Pop Step and Koichi walked up by his side. Oh, this is that organizer I was talking about. He'll be helping us from now on. So try not to scare him off, you old fart. Heh, poor sucker. So did she hold that schedule of yours over your head? The gruff old man asked with a smirk. She definitely did, Koichi answered for him. Pop Step clicked her tongue. Oh, shut up. I wouldn't have to if you two were actually reliable. Heh. Well, good luck kid. You'll need it. I'm Knuckledister, by the way. Koichi's so-called sensei chuckled, walking past Izuku casually before heading directly for the mini-fridge. Anyway, I got some development on that case I was following. Gather round. Case? Izuku asked, quickly turning his head back to them. Yeah. It's not something you'll see on the news, as of yet. Pop Step said, gathering with Koichi around the table as the older man walked back over, placing several beers on the table in front of him. You should probably hear this so you can avoid trouble in the future. Izuku stood at the door, sparing a look down at Morgana, who had popped his head back out of his bag. Could this be a lead? Slowly walking back to the table, he took a seat and listened intently. So what did you learn, sensei? Koichi asked as he folded his legs under the table. So I was out questioning the usual suspects, and you mean beating? Pop Step grimaced. Please tell me you didn't hurt too many people, sensei, Koichi asked hopefully. Beat. Hurt. Izuku repeated, eyes darting around. Relax. I only beat about 5 or 6 punks before I got what I needed. Oh yeah? And how many of them were actually criminals? Pop Step asked doubtfully. They were causing plenty of trouble before I showed up. Now enough about that, I've got more important things to talk about. Knuckledister waved off her concern. Izuku couldn't help but notice the man remove his bloodstained brass knuckles. This man is definitely dangerous, we'll just have to hope sensei was right, Koichi sighed before motioning for him to continue. So what did you find out? I caught one of the bastards selling trigger on the street. It was some weak shit, though. Not the stuff we've been running into. Knuckledister continued before downing a beer. Trigger? As in the quirk-enhancing drug? Izuku asked, mildly shocked. Yeah. There have been a few cases of people getting injected at random with this really strong trigger drug. We've been following it for a while but haven't come up with anything, Pop Step explained. So if you see someone hulk out at random because of their quirk, it's probably trigger. This stuff also turns your tongue black when you take it. Do us a favor and text me if you see anything like that, okay? Huh? Oh sure. It was actually quite interesting to talk about a case like this so openly with people he had just met. It's nice to know other people are trying to do what they can, even if it means breaking the law. That's not the lead I got, though. I got a lead on those quirk erasing bullets. Izuku's blood ran cold. Quirk erasing bullets? Yup. We only recently got involved in this case. Koichi said, grimacing. While we were out one day for our usual work, I got hit with this quirk erasing bullet during a fight. It was pretty scary stuff, at least it wasn't a real bullet. Pop Step looked relieved as she said that before turning back to Knuckledister. So what did you find out? I was able to get one of the asshole's bullets before he could use it. I couldn't take his whole case cause the cops showed up. Knuckledister produced a single bullet casing, sticking it on the table. Looking closer, Izuku saw a needle protruding from the top instead of a bullet. Apparently the guys selling trigger on the streets have been getting asked to sell this too. Says it's some sorta test that their providers want to use. Selling those bullets and trigger. These guys are real serious, Koichi shivered at the thought. Any idea who the providers are? Some Yakuza types, I think. The seller described it as a guy with some kind of old-time medicine mask. Yakuza? Izuku repeated, his thoughts going back to what Iwai had mentioned. I heard they're still surviving, albeit barely. Heh. That means you know more than most, kid. Knuckledister said with a grin. That's right. Those old-timers are still kicking. In fact, they might be more than that. From what I hear, I think they're getting ready for a big move. Huh? What else have they been doing? Asked Koichi. This isn't the first time I heard about those medicine masks. There was some local robberies I've heard talk about caused by a group of men wearing medical masks. We've got that link, at least. Knuckledister explained. But why would the Yakuza be committing some petty crimes like that? Pop Step asked. Considering how much hiding they have to do, it's probably something simple like needing money. Knuckledister shrugged. If they're looking to make quick bucks, robberies and third-party drug dealers are probably the safest way for them to do it. And with these quirk-erasing bullets hitting the streets, there's no way they're not planning something big. Izuku looked down at his hands. This is serious. I knew the Yakuza might still be a problem, but this could be worse than what I thought. His thoughts drifted again to Iwai. He had mentioned a group of dangerous Yakuza. I might have to ask him something about this. If you're thinking what I'm thinking, Izuku's eyes drifted to Morgana next to him, who was giving him a knowing smile. Then I've got an idea. You should get going. I'll meet you outside. Before Izuku could say anything, Morgana crawled out from his bag and crept under the table. What's he going to do? But he trusted Morgana knew what he was doing. So, I think I'll be going now. He snatched up his belongings and started moving for the door. It's getting pretty late and this all seems really intense. Yeah. Sorry about that. Guess we weren't being too considerate of you. Koichi apologized, rubbing the back of his head. Yeah, I just thought it's best to warn you instead of leaving you in the dark, said Pop Step. If you want to head off, go ahead. Okay. Thank you for telling me all of this, though. I'll keep an eye out. Izuku said, bowing gratefully before turning around and taking his leave. Knuckledister watched his back as he left before speaking again. Strange kid. Wonder what he's hiding. What makes you say that? Koichi asked in wonder. He didn't react like most kids his age, at least not normal ones. Seemed like a normal reaction to me. Nah, he took it pretty well. But I get it, Pop Step shrugged. He's the kid with a record at our school, so I bet this isn't the shadiest thing he's heard. She looked at Knuckledister, the older man looking around the room in wonder. What's wrong? I think the bullet disappeared. Huh? Koichi and Pop Step balked, looking down at the table to see it had disappeared. How the heck did you lose it so fast, old man? Might have been when I was downing some beer. Hey. We gotta find it. It'll be bad if someone steps on the needle. None of them noticed as Morgana slipped out the window. The cat quickly caught up to Izuku, climbing up his back and leaning over his shoulder. Got it. Got what? Morgana dropped the bullet from his mouth, Izuku barely catching it as it fell. Morganason. Why did you take this? Because, I think we found the phantom thieves' next lead. Morgana gave a feline smile. You can't tell me you weren't thinking about it. Izuku stared down at the bullet, swallowing a lump in his throat. Yeah, I suppose you're right. This might be the perfect target for the phantom thieves to take on next. He nodded, looking back at the cat. Tomorrow, we'll tell the others and start investigating. It just wasn't Kogamasun's day, was it? It was supposed to be a quiet day. He scoped out the scene, made sure there were no cops or rats, and met with his usuals. He tried to pawn off some of the quirk-erasing bullets, but only one guy had made a purchase all day, and that didn't lead to anything out of the ordinary. But then the old man showed up, swinging some brass knuckles around like some old-time strong-arm thug. Even after Koga had amped himself up with Trigger, the asshole wouldn't stop coming and beat his face in. To make matters worse, he made off with one of the bullets before leaving him behind for the cops. Now he was being carted off by the cops, on his way to holding and likely to be questioned. The engine of the paddy wagon rumbled in his ears and the metal of his cage shook with every bump. Koga's heart beat 1,000 miles an hour in his ear. This wasn't going to be a good day at all. Shit. This just isn't my day. Koga cursed, grinding his teeth into his bottom lip. If word gets out that I got pinched, I'm totally fucked. Koga had been caught red-handed, jacked on Trigger and unable to escape with a case of Trigger and quirk-erasing bullets. The cops had everything they need without having to ask to put him away for a while, and then some. Now it was just a matter of whether he would snitch to get into protective custody. Do I even got a choice? I'll be stabbed in General Pop. Koga thought fearfully, sweat trailed down his face. I'm not a snitch. But I don't wanna die. I'm just small time. I ain't got no backup. Koga had no choice. He was going to have to spill everything if he wanted to survive. He'd have to play hard to get though, otherwise they'll just short him on any type of deal. It was shameful for a man in his line of work, but it was better than being dead. How long until we get there? Koga asked, failing to hide the trepidation in his voice. Shut up. We get there when we get there. The cop driver scoffed back. Assholes, Koga snarled, but could only lean his head forward. Okay, Koga. Don't act too nervous. Don't let him know what you're thinking. Make him try and sweeten Koga's thoughts were abruptly interrupted as the paddy wagon suddenly swerved back and forth, causing him to jerk back and forth, only saved from face planting into the surrounding cage by the straps holding him in. Hey. What the hell are you doing up there? You guys drunk? Koga snarled, trying to peer his head to look in the window between him and the drivers. Only to see both cops buckled over in their seats. What the foo, the car swerved again, this time crashing the van. Koga bucked back and forth in his seat. He was lucky that the van seemed to run into something solid, the crash hard but not so violent that he or the drivers would be dead. It rattled him enough though, Koga suffering from whiplash. He was dazed and in pain, groaning as he tried to find his bearings. He heard the van doors open, slowly trailing his eyes over to see two figures entering. As his vision began to steady, Koga soon realized that it was his suppliers, the 8 precepts. He wasn't sure whether to be relieved or completely terrified. One was fully cloaked in black with a wide-brimmed black hat and a full-face medicine mask. The other was dressed more relaxed and only wore the medicine beak over his mouth. Looks like he's still intact. Koga guessed the darker dressed of the two said, his voice muffled by his mask. Good. Let's get his cage open. The other said, eyes watching Koga coldly. Shit. I can't believe these guys came to get me like this. Koga swallowed a lump in his throat but put on a confident smile. Gotta play it cool. Play it cool and I can make it out of this. Man, you guys work fast. Thank God you're here. Koga said, struggling against his binds. Gee, get me out of here. Quiet, we're getting to it. Koga's mouth never slammed closed faster in his life. The darkly dressed one quickly opened his cage with the keys, undoing Koga's bind soon after. Thanks. Koga rubbed his wrists as he was freed, grinning nervously as he stood from his seat. Man, you guys work fast. Thanks for Koga was cut short as a hand gripped around his neck and slammed him against the wagon's metal walls. Koga would have tried to fight back, but the barrel of a gun was quickly shoved in his face. Before we let you go, we have some questions, the Yakuza declared, the lack of expression or emotion from his mask only terrifying Koga. First, what did you tell the police? Nothing. They haven't questioned me yet. Koga answered before he could stop himself. What the fuck that just came out? Was it his quirk? I see. That's good. Now, what did the police take from you? A case of the trigger I was selling and 1 case of the bullets. Koga answered yet again, visibly shaking. This is good, right? Koga thought, giving a tepid smile. I haven't sold anyone out yet. They can't hold anything against me. Sounds like what we collected was all of it then. The other member standing idly by said, tapping his arm. Looks like the situation isn't beyond salvaging then. Koga felt his throat released, coughing for air and rubbing his neck. You're lucky. Thank God. I'm in the clear. One last thing, though, what were you going to do when questioned? I was going to play hard to get before giving up everything I had. Koga clapped his hands over his mouth, feeling a deathly chill running down his spine. The black lenses of the medicine mask stared into Koga's own. He did his best impression of a statue, but it was no use. I guess that's all, then. The Yakuza turned around, lowering his gun without another word. Koga stood in place for a moment longer, watching him carefully. He slowly turned his head, only to see the other Yakuza standing felt like a fly about to be swatted as the Yakuza's hand reached between the bars and touched Koga's arm. We don't need flimsy guys like you. The last thing Koga felt was his skin puffing up like a balloon seconds before his entire upper body popped like one. Overhaul wiped at the blood staining his arm. Hives rose across his face and arm. Dirty. He took another glove from his zipped plastic bag and stepped out of the van. Todoro. Are the cops alive? Yes sir. They're out like lights but still breathin', just like you asked. An eccentric voice echoed from above the paddy wagon. Good. We don't need vengeful cops getting on our case. Overhaul nodded, walking forward. We're almost ready. And any bumps will be dealt with. To be continued. This is the end of the video. If you enjoyed the story, then hit the like button and comment your favorite part, but for now see you all in the next video.